Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Became a Villain to Save Everyone? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Midoriya Izuku is only 4 years old when his entire view of the world gets thrown upside down. Or, maybe he should say, gets casted in pitch black. 2 months prior, Kaken got his quirk. Izuku turned when he heard the voice of his best friend, high-pitched laughs of pure joy reaching high in the sky. Cheeks red with excitement and sandy blonde hair bobbing up and down in time with his jumps, Kaken is keeping his hands held out, palms up, as golden sparks comes out of them, popping. They reminds Izuku of the little sparkly candles his mom prefers to lit during New Year's Eve in place of actual fireworks. Izuku laughs with him, jumps with him, just as excited as Kaken is about the quirk manifesting. Kaken! This is amazing! This is the best quirk ever! Izuku yells, running circles around him. I'm going to be a hero! Kaken replies, cheeks breaking smile on his face, turning to keep looking at a overexcited Izuku. You're gonna be a hero. Izuku yells, jumping with his arms stretched up to the sky. The change is so fast that Izuku feels like he just came down of a roller coaster, but all the time. Kaken changed. In the span of a couple of weeks, his best friend, the child he grew up with, that he loved so much, turned into a completely different person. The adults praise this, chatting between themselves about how a quirk manifestation is always a time of great changes, and Izuku doesn't like that. This new Kaken is brash and speaks too loudly and picks on Izuku a bit too much. But still, he keeps following, because Kaken is his best friend, and Izuku loves him. Are you okay? Izuku asks, holding out his hand. Kaken looks up at him, a smile frozen in place for long seconds, before his expression changes into rage and he splashes Izuku. I don't need your help. Kaken growls, walking out the little streams as Izuku looks at his back, confused and hurt, droplets of water falling from his constantly unkept mop of curly hair. Midoriya Izuku is only 4 years old when he wakes up and his room is all dark. He's sure it's not nighttime still, because he heard Mom's alarm going off in the distance, and he heard her going to the bathroom to brush her teeth, and he can still hear her downstairs, preparing breakfast as she does every day. Izuku slowly sits on his bed, his head spinning. He palms at the sheets, then up his face. His eyes are open, right? His question gets an answer when he accidentally pokes himself in the eye. Hissing, he squeezes his eyes, before slowly opening them. Still pitch black. Izuku blinks. He feels himself blinking. Mom knocks gently on the door, before entering. Izuku, oh, you're awake. She says. Izuku can hear the smile in her voice. Breakfast is almost ready, sweetheart, Izuku? Izuku feels his mom closing the short gap between his bed and the door, feels her weight on the bed, her gentle, thin fingers on his little wrist. Honey, is everything okay? She asks, and Izuku can imagine perfectly right the little wrinkle between her eyes. Mom dash, Izuku whispers, his voice hitching in his throat. I can't see. For a while, Izuku doesn't go to school. He spends most of his days in the car, as a silent mom drives him around, between a doctor appointment, an exam, another doctor appointment. No one can make sense of his sudden loss of sight. How can a healthy 4-year-old boy go to sleep with his eyes perfectly working, and wake up blind? He silently listens to Mom talk with doctors, nurses, specialists. He gets asked if he can see the light pointed right into his eyes, if he can see the board with the symbols. Izuku remembers the board from past checkup appointments, but he still can't see it. He hears Mom trying to stifle a sob when the doctor shines the light right into his face. He can feel the faint warmth of it on his skin, but his eyes cannot perceive anything. Doctors with special healing quirks comes to visit Izuku at their house, but still his world is pitch black. Mom gently cards her hand through his hair after every appointment. It's gonna be all right, sweetheart. She says. We will find a way. She sounds less and less convinced every time she says it. He has to go back to school. He heard Mom talking on the phone about arrangements and teachers, and Izuku sits on the stairs in silence as Mom hangs up and little sobs come out of her mouth. "Hello, Izuku," a gentle female voice says. A warm hand closes around his little one. "I'm Kyoko, I will be your teacher from now on," she says. Kyoko comes every morning, picks him up from their house. "Say bye to Mom." Izuku turns around, not sure if he's pointing in the right direction, and waves his hand. "Have a good day, honey." Mom says her voice always sounds kind of watery. Kyoko teaches him a lot. How to orientate himself and walk with a cane, how to read with fingers, how to label things so he can know what he needs without having to ask anyone. During the break he gets to go in the garden with other kids. His classmates. Kaken. Most of the other kids gives him a wide berth, whispering between themselves behind his back. But not Kaken. Deku catch. The ball hits him straight in the face and he ends up on his butt, but he doesn't cry. This time. "Ugh, you're so useless." Kaken's voice is closer now. There's a long stretch of silence. "Your eyes are so weird." "What do you mean?" Izuku asks, his mostly unused voice cracking a bit in his throat. "They are like, all washed out and pale." Kaken says, and Izuku feels the air moving in front of his face, and he knows that Kaken is waving his hand right in front of him. "You really can't see, huh?" Izuku doesn't answer, getting back up and brushing the dust away from his breathes. "Come on, catch this time." Kaken says, running away and kicking the ball at him. Izuku doesn't catch. "Mom." Inko turns around, startled. Izuku is sitting at the kitchen table, his little legs kicking at nothing, his fingers still on the braille book he was slowly reading. Izuku doesn't talk that much anymore. "Are my eyes weird?" Inko feels something caught in her throat. The need to kneel and bawl. Instead she forces a smile her son can't see anymore on her face. "They are appealing as always, dear." 2 weeks later, Izuku refuses to go get his usual haircut. "But honey dash," Inko tries to reason. "You hair is all in front of your face dash." "It's okay." Izuku whispers. "They cover my eyes, right?" She didn't think it was possible, but her heart broke all over again. "I wonder what kind of quirk I will get." Izuku says, following the sounds of Kaken kicking his soccer ball as he walks, swinging the cane as Kyoko taught him. "I hope it's a strong one, like yours." He's always following Kaken. "Adash," Kaken laughs. "Nothing will ever be as strong as my quirk. And even if you get a good one, you'd still be useless with those eyes of yours." Izuku is always following Kaken, even if Kaken is brash and loud and picks on Izuku a little too much. At least Kaken is not treating him like he's a broken glass kept together by tape. Midoriya Izuku is only 4 years old, bordering on 5, when he and Mom come out of the last doctor appointment. Izuku sits in the car, silently. He listens to gentle sounds of the engine, picking at the velvety cover of the seat with nervous fingers. Izuku has dreamt so much. About his quirk, about how he'd learn to use it, about how he'd become strong and be a hero, even if his world is all black. All until the doctor said that word. Quirkless. Kaken hasn't stopped laughing for a while. "I can't believe this dash," he said once he finally calmed down. "You're like the most useless being on this planet. You can't see, and you don't even have a quirk." Izuku keeps following. Fateful, hopeful, that his friend is still there, somewhere. It's summer break, and Izuku has been searching for a while. Kaken wasn't at the usual place. He keeps searching until he realizes he doesn't know where he is anymore. Fear seizes his throat as a sheen of tears covers his unseeing eyes. Izuku searches, smacks right into a tree, the bark under his hand is cool and slightly humid, and sits under it, collecting his knees against his chest, as sobs shakes him. He's lost, he will never find the way home, Mom will be sad, he's lost. "Deku." Izuku raises his head, tears rolling down his cheeks. "K Kaken?" A long-suffering sigh. "Why are you crying now?" I just hiccup. "I got lost dash." Kaken sighs again. His rough hand closes around Izuku's wrist, jerking him up on his feet. Izuku stumbles, but Kaken doesn't stop, dragging him away. "Honestly, you can't do anything alone." Kaken grumbles. Like, why do you even exist? Izuku doesn't answer, head down. They walk in silence for a while, until Kaken jerks him around again. Izuku hits his shoulder on something that feels like cement. Here, you're home now. Kaken says, sounding annoyed. Stop getting lost. Stop following me. You're constantly giving me work. You're such a dead weight. How am I supposed to become a hero if you're constantly holding me down? Izuku doesn't answer, leaning on the familiar walls surrounding his house. He feels his throat clog up, cold sweat beading on his forehead under the messy hair covering his eyes. Find someone like you to pester, I'm done with you. Kaken says, and his voice doesn't sound cold or cruel. Uninterested. Like Izuku is nothing. A pebble on the side of the road. Izuku nods, and makes his way back into his house. Mom welcomes him like she always does, like nothing is wrong. Izuku stops following Kaken. Izuku, what are you doing? Mom's voice sounds weird from the door. Izuku stops, his little fingers tight around the plastic figurine. He can feel the curves of it under his fingers, the vaguely pointed tuft of plastic hair. He hasn't done much in his room since his loss of sight, besides labeling. He remembered all his posters, all the All Might toys sitting on the shelves, and even if he couldn't see them anymore, it gave him comfort to know they were there. Like he could hear All Might's voice, booming and happy, telling him to be strong and that he could do it. He could answer Mom, he could try to articulate how that sense of comfort has slowly changed, how he can't hear All Might's voice anymore. How he only hears the whisperings of pity about the poor, blind, quirkless boy. His peers whining they don't want him in their team because it means they will lose. Kaken? Kaken. He shrugs instead, and keeps putting all the toys and posters into a cardboard box. Mom keeps watching him, silent, until his room is barren and his shelves empty, and the box goes into the back of the closet, collecting dust. Middle school is completely different, and yet all the same. He doesn't have a special teacher anymore. Kyoko-san has taught him everything she possibly could. Mom bought him a phone, and together they went over all the disabilities options necessary. Izuku likes his phone. He likes to keep an earbud in during his commute to school, listening to the voiceover reading articles about the latest hero news. He was still interested in heroes, so what? Bite him. School is not much. He's expected to keep up with his peers, doesn't get any special treatment. It's hard, but honestly Izuku prefers it to being treated with kid gloves. And he likes to study, so it's not that big of a deal. His mom beams when he brings home his grades. He can hear it in her voice. My handsome, young man. She says, ruffling his hair. So brilliant. He whines. He keeps studying. He keeps writing his notes about heroes and quirks. Even if he doesn't write for the future, in the title anymore. He doesn't have friends, but Izuku is fine with it. By some cruel joke of destiny, he ended up being in the same class as Kaken. But Kaken mostly ignores him. Izuku has tried to speak to him every now and then, but Kaken only grunts back. Izuku can't see body language, but he doesn't need it to get the hint. He soon stops trying to talk to him. At first other teens asks Kaken about him. Aren't you childhood friends with the blind boy? What he's really like? Why is he so weird? Kaken reacts with a scoff and silence at best, with explosive literally rage at worst. The questions soon stops. Izuku doesn't have any friends. He tells himself he's fine with it. His peers ignores him for the most part. Some of them are cruel and play tricks on him. They hide his phone and tell him to get it. It's right there in front of his eyes, while laughing. They bump into him and then sneer, sorry, didn't see you there. At first someone tries to weakly protest, but no one wants to be next, so that soon stops as well. Kaken doesn't say anything. Izuku is sure he heard him chuckle at some of the so-called jokes. Izuku doesn't have any friends. He doesn't need them. He doesn't need bullies that pick on the blind, quirkless boy, nor cowards that refuse to stand up for the blind, quirkless boy. He doesn't need anyone really. He doesn't tell Mom any of this, but he knows that she knows. She always knows. How do you see? Izuku stops, rice from his bento midway to his mouth. He's on the roof, alone as usual, until he hears steps and then a female voice asks that question. You have, like, your hair all in front of your eyes. She elaborates at his silence. And you have a lot of hair. She adds for emphasis. I don't see. Izuku deadpants. The girls comes closer, and Izuku feels fingers shift his hair away from his face. A gentle gasp follows. Izuku doesn't know how his eyes look like. They were a brilliant emerald, once, but now according to Kaken they looked more like a pale, sickly green. Like fake alien vomit. His mom said that his eyes looked like the sea water on the shore, clear and sparkly, when the first light of morning comes up in the sky. It's wondrous how two people can describe so differently the same thing, isn't it? There's silence, and Izuku expects the usual round of I'm so sorry I didn't know I didn't want to offend. You are cute though. The female voice says instead. You shouldn't hide your face like this. Izuku blinks. Her name is Miki Kobayakawa. Call me Miki, she immediately said after they exchanged proper pleasantries. If you don't, I'll punch you. That gets a startled laugh out of Izuku. Miki is brash and loud and full of energy. She reminds Izuku of Kaken, sometimes. But her brashness is more focused. Kaken is like a rabid dog, biting and snarling at anything that comes in his field of vision. Miki is more of a wolf, in Izuku's mind. She's aggressive, but only if someone puts foot in her territory. Apparently, Izuku is considered part of the territory, now. Get the F out of here. Miki yells as Izuku gets up from the floor, brushing his breathes. Izuku hears frantic steps and male voices hurling insults getting farther. Yeah, some big men you are. Miki yells one last time, before turning towards Izuku, muttering. Effing you holes. They are all so good at picking on a single person in 5. Are you okay, Izuku? Izuku was on his way home when he accidentally stumbled into someone. He apologized, but the little group wasn't happy with just that, apparently. I'm fine. He answers. Where did you came from? This. Oh, I wanted to go to the bookshop down the street and I saw you getting dragged away. She answers, matter-of-factly, and sniffs. You need to learn how to throw a punch, Izuku. Izuku shrugs, palming in his backpack to make sure nothing fell out during the scuffle. Even if I knew how to do that, I won't know where to aim. Still, even swinging blindly, no pun intended, dude, can be effective if your opponent doesn't expect it. She replies without missing a beat. If your enemy thinks you are completely defenseless, they will be full of openings. You could take advantage of that. Izuku puts his backpack back on his shoulders, silent. Say what? Miki adds. You know my mom teaches self-defense at her gym. Why don't you apply? I'll make puppy eyes at her so she'll let you in for free. The first time Miki visited, Mom literally squealed with delight at her son bringing home a friend, doting on both of them to an almost embarrassing degree, and Izuku thought that Miki would never come by again. Your mom is cool. Miki said instead. She visited very often after that. Her and Mom went together as perfectly as a house on fire. Izuku's life started to be more than just homeschool home. They went to the zoo, and Miki had taken delight in describing the animals to him. Miki, I remember what an elephant looks like. Izuku protested. They are not purple. Miki started laughing, and Izuku followed. They spent the rest of the day describing the animals as outrageously inaccurately as possible. Mom laughed to tears when they couldn't stop with the flying monkeys spitting fire and growing rainbow-colored scales. They went to the movies, and Miki would narrate to him what was happening. She was atrocious, at first, but increasingly became better both in descriptiveness and how quickly she'd manage to narrate. People would try to shush them or call them out, sometimes. Izuku would fake sob as Miki replied very loudly, "My friend is blind, you a-hole," and then whisper described to him the look of horror and embarrassment of the unfortunate moviegoer that happened to be in the same place as them, making Izuku giggle snort soda out of his nose. The first time he visited Miki's home, he found it startlingly similar to his own family situation. A father out of the picture, a hard-working mother. The difference was that as much as Izuku has taken after his mom's timid and meek nature, Miki has taken after her mom, loud and brash and honest, that was never scared of laughing out loud. Kobayakawa Ichiko welcomed him like an old friend of her daughter. From the very start, sharing with him embarrassing stories from Mickey's childhood, never shying away from him or treating him like a delicate flower. She was very fond of Izuku's deadpan sense of humor, laughing from her belly and punching him on the shoulder. "I wanted to be a hero when I was your age," Ichiko said once, when she noticed him listening intently to the news, seeing right through him. "In the end, growing up, I realized I preferred teaching, so here I am." Izuku nodded his understanding, silently. "Do you want to be a hero, young man?" she asked. Izuku didn't say anything for a long while. He couldn't hear the scratch of Mickey's pen on her math homework anymore, and he knew they were both staring at him. He opened and closed his mouth a couple of times, nothing coming out of him. "It has always been my dream ever since I was a kid," he admitted in a low voice, in the end, incapable of giving a resounding yes. Neither Mickey nor Ichiko laughed, or said it was impossible, or offered him alternative career paths. "Well, you've got to work hard for it then," Ichiko said in the end. "And learn how to throw a punch," Mickey added, gently kicking him under the table. Izuku expects his mom to say no. "It's too dangerous. You could get hurt. You don't need to know how to fight." "Yes," Mom says, her voice strong and unwavering. "I will be happy to come by this weekend and speak with your mother about it, Mickey-chan. Thank you so much for offering." "Mom knows. Mom always knows." Izuku and Mickey sat in the living room of Mickey's home, pretending not to hear their mothers going back and forth just a room away. "I insist, Inko said. "Ichiko-san, I assisted to your lessons. You are an amazing teacher. There's no way I'll let you teach Izuku without paying "Nonsense," Ichiko replied. "Izuku is like a son to me now. I could never accept money. I'll be happy to teach him anything he needs for as long as he needs to be taught." Inko started to reply, again, and Mickey asked in an unamused voice, "Do you think they will keep this up all day?" Izuku groaned, dragging his hands on his face. At the end of the first week under Ichiko's regime of workout, Izuku was absolutely destroyed. Everything ached, even places he didn't know could possibly ache. He let the hot water wash over him, relax his sore muscles. "Izuku-a-. Mom called, her voice far away and muffled by the sound of the shower. "Dinner's almost ready." Izuku closed the water with a soft sigh, palmed the little side table to find the clean towel he prepared, and dried himself before putting on his pajamas. At every step he took to get downstairs he couldn't help but let out a little of pain. Mom chuckled. "Very funny," he replied once he was finally in the kitchen, sinking down in the seat and flashing his tongue at Mom. "I can already see some results, you know?" Mom said, putting his bowl in front of him. Izuku scoffed. "Yeah, right." "No, really," she insisted, a smile in her voice. "Maybe I'll join you. I need to lose some weight." "Mom, you'll die." Inko laughed, ruffling his hair. "How dramatic." Everything hurt. Izuku was sure even his hair hurt. He grinned. He'd never been so happy in his entire life. The days passed fast, the months going by. The end of his first year of middle school got closer and closer, and Izuku has set into a routine. He would wake up early, go for a jog around the block, a familiar path where he knew exactly each step he could take without his cane, then shower and school. The afternoon was dedicated to homework and then, depending on the day, either cardio or training with Ichiko. 3 times a week he would train, with the Saturday free for him and Mickey to just relax and enjoy being teenagers, and Sundays completely dedicated to training. Sunday was his favorite day by far. He loved the training. Ichiko was not only helping him becoming stronger physically, but also taught him with infinite patience every fighting technique she thought he could need and then some. Sometimes Mickey would join them, sometimes she just watched and cheered him from the sideline. Izuku poured everything he had into it, and the long Sundays, where it was just the 4 of them in Ichiko's gym, were the best part of his week, no matter what. Mom has, in fact, joined him, although just with some light cardio. Ichiko-san had been delighted to help the both of them, to study a proper diet with them, and she would constantly compliment Mom on her hard work, even possibly more than she complimented Izuku. Not that he minded, Mom deserved all the compliments in the world. The end of his first year of middle school was ending, And Izuku felt so very different from the person he was just a few months prior. Miki was holding the boxing sack for him as he went through the routine. She started to do this a while ago, as Izuku's punches started being strong enough that the sack would swing too wildly for him to go through the exercises alone. Miki called the change of pace for him. Right hook, left hook, uppercut, faster, slower. Sweats rolled down his face generously, shirt sticking on his back, his breath fast but controlled as Ichiko-san taught him. Stop! Miki called, and Izuku slumped a bit, hands on his knees, catching his breath. You went through the entire routine without having to stop once. Miki said, satisfaction in her voice. He heard her scribbling down the results on his exercise board. Good job, Izuku. Izuku grinned, standing back up straight and stretching. He could hear Ichiko-san and Mom talking from the corner with the Terulant. Miki, why don't we spar? Miki did not say anything. Come on, Dash, he insisted, jumping a bit, light on his feet. I know you are much better than me at this, but if I don't start to stretch my wings a bit with a real fight, how am I supposed to learn? I don't know, Izuku. Miki replied, her voice strangely measured. I think it's better discuss this with Mom. First Dash. Oh come on, you party pooper. Izuku pressed, laughing. It doesn't have to be, like, super serious. Besides, my mom and yours seems rather busy over there for now. No, Miki said curtly. Izuku stopped his light jumps. Silence stretched over them. Is it because I'm blind? The resentment bubbled up his throat, the words leaving his mouth, even surprising him. Miki sighed. You know I don't care about that. Then why not? I just don't want to, okay? He could feel that Miki turned her back on him. Something grabbed at Izuku's stomach. Izuku, the blind quirkless boy, always so meek and timid and useless. Always in the shadow, nothing of importance, really. No one to spare a single look at. He could accept this from strangers. He did accept this from Kaken. But Miki was his best friend. His only friend. He could not accept this. Not from her. He knew Miki was good at fighting. He knew he wouldn't hit her. There was nothing to worry about. If she didn't want to fight, if she insisted in underestimating him, then he'll force her to look at him, to consider him. Izuku charged. He had a good estimation in his mind of how far Miki had to be, now. He felt the air moving as Miki turned back to face him with a startled gasp. Her hand closed around Izuku's wrist. His world became pain. Everything was pain, every single nerve of his body was burning, hot and searing, he was breaking, he was turning into ashes, someone was screaming raw in the distance. It was him. When Izuku woke up, he felt like his entire body has been run over by a train about 1,000 times. A wet sob near him, Izuku? He tried to say, but coughed instead, his throat burning and raw. His breath itched in his lungs as Mom urged at his side, helping him sitting a bit straighter and putting a glass on his lips. It's okay, sweetheart, it's over here, drink this, slowly Dash, she whispered, frantic. Izuku was shivering so hard some of the water splashed down as Mom helped him drink. He started to sweat, his body protesting loudly at each movement. The seconds stretched long as he finished the glass of water and Mom helped him back down on the pillow. Izuku was speechless, his mind a scrambled mess, unable to make sense of anything. I'm going to call the doctor, okay? Mom said, her voice trembling. I'll be right back, honey, don't worry. He didn't dare move a single finger, the pain lingering like a vulture on his shoulders. Mom came back after what felt like an eternity, and a male voice presented himself as Dr. something something. He could barely understand, really. The man visited him, or so he thought anyway. It was hard to perceive anything over the fog of constant pain stabbing his brain at every minuscule movement. The pain is going to persist for a couple of days at least, bed rest. That was all Izuku could hear before he fell back into the sweet, salvific embrace of sleep. When he woke up again, he knew he was home. There was something in his room, that atmosphere of, this is my place, that always permeated it, that made it easy for him to know even if his entire world was always dark. Tentatively he sat. The pain was still there, but it wasn't nearly as strong as it was the first time he woke. He wondered distantly for how long he slept. Slowly he got out of bed, shuffled outside his room, down the corridor. When he lingered in the doorway, he heard Mom gasp softly and then ask sleepily, "Is Zuku?" "Mom," he said. His voice was gravel. He wondered how hard and for how long he screamed to make his throat so swollen and hurt. What happened? Mom put down a cup of hot tea in front of him, and Izuku closed his shivering fingers around the warmth, grateful. He heard her sitting in front of him, he could feel her eyes digging into him. "I don't even know where to begin," she finally said, her voice both soft and steely, somehow. "Izuku, I'm very disappointed." Izuku flinched, his fingers tighter around the cup. "You shouldn't have done what you did," she added in a whisper. "Did you know of Miki-chan's quirk?" He shook his head. "Asked her once," he said in a tiny voice after the silence stretched. She told me she didn't want to talk about it, so I never insisted." "You've hurt her," Mom said, and Izuku couldn't hold the tears anymore at the sad tone in her voice. "You've hurt her so much, Izuku. I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm too mad." The impersonal, robotic voiceover read the text to him. "Okay," he texted back. Ichiko-san sighed deeply as he bowed to her after his apology. "It's better if we stop for a while," she said, and the disappointment in her voice, so similar to Mom's, hurt more than any punch possibly could. "You are a smart young man, Izuku. Think about what happened and about why you acted the way you did. When you have accepted your actions and feel ready to start again, I'll be happy to take you in once more." Izuku nodded. "Thank you," he added, his voice so small. He knew why he did what he did. He let his negative feelings, all the rage and frustrations, all the pent-up resentment, every word and actions that he passively took through his life, from all the people around him that saw him as nothing more than a dead weight on society, and has turned them against the only person in the whole world that had loved him unconditionally from the very first day that he met. His shelves were still barren, but Izuku thought that if he opened the box sitting in the back of his closet right now, he would hear All Might's voice reprimanding him for his action. He would be so disappointed. Some hero I'd make, Izuku thought bitterly, as traitorous tears spilled from his eyes yet again. "Hey, Hey!" Kaken's hand closed on his shoulder like a clamp, turning him around. He compared Mickey to Kaken once. But he couldn't have been more wrong. They couldn't have been more different. "Don't ignore me, you prick." Kaken growled. "What the hell are you going around with that long face for? You look like death warmed over. Cheer up a bit, you're making everyone around you miserable." Izuku gritted his teeth so hard he felt them screech in his jaw. "Is that all that I am?" he asked, voice low. "A thing that has no right to be? Is what I make other people feel all that I am?" "Huh?" Kaken replied, loud. "The F, are you talking about, shithead?" "Let me go," Izuku said, steel in his voice. "Or what?" Kaken sneered. "Oh, Izuku." Mom has sighed when he entered in the principal office. She looked over at Katsuki, the boy that was used to come to their house almost every day. That was a lifetime ago, Inko realized, and Katsuki was no longer that tiny little boy that would thank her for the drinks or sweets she'd bring them outside, the tiny little boy that would say bye with a huge smile on his face at the end of each day. That boy didn't exist anymore. Instead, in front of her there was a young man, all nervous energy and pent-up rage. She always wondered what went wrong between him and Izuku. Katsuki was barely seating, visually trembling in an effort not to jump up and attack. There was a copious amount of blood on his lips and chin, staining the front of his shirt, and a bruise was rapidly getting more and more swollen, closing his right eye. Katsuki's nose was crooked, clearly broken. On the opposite chair, Izuku was sitting perfectly still, not a single sign on him if not for the single scorch mark on his shoulder. There was blood on his knuckles. "Ms. Midoriya, thank you for coming so fast," the principal said, getting up from his seat. "Katsuki dash," she said, unable to resist the use of the name that was once so familiar on her lips. "Are you dash?" "I'm fine," Katsuki all but yelled. "We have already called an ambulance." The principal said to her unasked question. They should be here any minute now. In the meantime, I would like to discuss what happened. There's nothing to discuss. Katsuki interrupted, his voice slightly nasal. Let me just take this shithead outside and then we can have a fair fight. None of this sucker punch bullshit, you shitty little coward. Shut up. Izuku interrupted, his voice venom and steel. Inko flinched, looking at her son, her sweet, brilliant, gentle son. What she found in those unseeing eyes, barely visible under the messy curls, scared her. Katsuki bolted from his seat, and so did she and the principal, tackling him before his hand could reach over to Izuku. Let me go! Katsuki yelled, trashing around. He was strong enough that despite the two adults holding him he dragged them forward, his face inching closer to Izuku's. Let me have it this shitty little I'll teach him a lesson. Izuku spat in Katsuki's face. Izuku! Inko yelled, outraged. Izuku got up, the chair he was sitting on crashing on the floor, and run out of the door. The sound of the ambulance was far away, he couldn't hear it anymore. Izuku didn't move, curled up in a ball on the roof, in his usual secluded spot. He didn't want to move, he didn't want to think. A small part of him wondered if he should just get up, climb over the fence and jump. I heard you punched a beach today. His entire body flinched as he instinctively turned his head over the source of the sound. Good. Miki sat at his side. You look hungry, she said, fiddling with something, and the smell of curry reached his nostrils. I'll share the bento. This time. Izuku was stupidly gaping like a fish and he knew it. So, you truly punched Bakugo? Izuku closed his mouth and nodded. JRK had it coming. She snorted. I shouldn't have. Izuku finally found his voice low and raw. You shouldn't have let yourself get caught. Miki said, her mouth full. But the punch? As I said, JRK got it coming. Punches. Izuku corrected her. Huh. I broke his nose with a right hook, got his eye with a left. Miki let out a laugh, but it was mirthless. You look like sheet. She said. Yeah, that's what Kaken said too. Why do you call him Kaken? Izuku shrugged. Habit, I guess. Well, shake it. He doesn't deserve an affectionate nickname, not from you. He's my friend, Izuku wanted to said. He shook his head. We were friends once. And now you're not, and he treats you like sheet. Stop feeling bad. Play beach games, win beach prizes, and all that. That startled a small laugh out of Izuku. You're impossible. It's not that bad. Except it is. She interrupted him, cold. I have eyes, Midoriya, and mine works, unlike yours. That startled another laugh out of him, but Miki continued, her voice tense. I see how he treats you. How they all do. And it makes me mad. It's not right, and you are a good person, and they are all trying their dim best to beat the goodness out of you, and that's not right. Izuku has never wished so hard to be able to see, to be able to read the expression on his friend's face, to understand what that note in her voice was. It makes me want to use it against them all. Miki whispers. What does that make me? Izuku doesn't have an answer, more than a little lost in the conversation. You're a much better person than me. She continued. And I hate what they are doing to you. I'm not, Miki. Izuku whispers, urgency in his voice. He kneels, reaching out with a tentative hand. You're the only person in this world that has ever treated me like an equal. And I attacked you. I'm not a good person. You think I don't know why you did that? It hurt at first. She replied, taking his wrist gently with only 3 fingers. To think you'd turn against me. I thought about it so much, Izuku. And it still hurts, the idea that you've let all that negativity get the best of you. Izuku lets his head hang down, ashamed. But I've been dismissive. I fished those feelings out of you. I should have explained why I didn't want to spar. I should have told you about my quirk, about why people avoid me. The pain. He whispers. The pain. She nods. It's simple, isn't it? Touch someone, cause pure, unadulterated pain. So simple, yet so effective. When my quirk fist presented, I was holding my dad's hand. He left not long after that. Mickey. I know how it feels to be cast away. To be avoided, to be laughed at, to get insulted. I know how painful it feels, and I admired you so much for the way you kept fighting despite everything. I still do. Izuku felt his throat clog up, his eyes wet. And I hate that the world seems to always do whatever it can to take what's good inside people and twist it until it's not good anymore, and you didn't deserve any of this. Mickey added, her voice wavering, sniffing a little. Izuku, I don't want to be mad anymore. Can we be friends again? And Izuku sobs, angrily wiping at his eyes with his sleeves, and the sheer ridiculousness of it all punches him. To talk of the darkness of the world in such terms and then realize that at the end of the day all they are just this. Children, lost in a place that always feels so unwelcome and scary. I didn't want to cry. He sobs out, angry. I didn't want to cry in front of you and to make you worry anymore. Oh please, you crybaby, she says, but Izuku hears the tears in her voice too. I'm sorry, Mickey, he says, lower lip wobbling, turning towards her. I'm sorry I attacked you. I would love to be friends again. Gentle arms close around him, Mickey's face pressing against his hair. You're forgiven, she murmurs. Izuku let out another sob, his face against her shoulder. They kept hanging on one another for long minutes, in silence, and Izuku finally feels that knot in his chest loosen for the first time in days. Do you want to know something? Izuku says, voice low but not watery anymore. I shouldn't be proud of this. But... What? Mickey says, relaxing her grip a bit to look down at him. I spit in Kaken's face. Mickey let out a sort of spit take before laughing heartily from her belly. Just like her mom. Suspended for 4 days. It was kind of inevitable, really. He did send Kaken to the hospital, and pretty much the entire school knew about it already. He probably got it light, all things considered. Maybe the principal took pity on him. An upside, he guesses. The car ride is silent, and Izuku could feel the anger radiating from his mom. He knows he should apologize for everything he put her through, but he can't find it in him at the moment. The confrontation with Mickey has left him utterly devoid of energy, and as happy as he is to have his friend back, he's a complete emotional mess. I should probably get back to the principal office, he sighed, getting up. The more I wait, the worse things will get. Mickey nudged him a bit. I'll text you later, okay? He smiled at her before getting into the building and walking back to the office, where a seething mom and a positively desperate principal were waiting. We are going over at Katsuki's house, later, and you will apologize. Mom's voice cut through his musing like steel, rudely jerking him back to reality. Yes. He replies, voice low. And I mean really apologize. Mom adds. What you did today, I don't even know what's with you, she sighs. Izuku, we really need to talk. I know. He says. I know. I'm not ready for it now. He can hear Mom's fingers tighten on the steering wheel. I really am sorry. Izuku adds, voice lowering. I know what I did is wrong. And I know there's a lot we need to talk about. Not today. Silence. Please. Inko's shoulders slumps forward. Okay. She whispers. Okay. The visit over at the Bakugas goes as well as expected. Get in here, I'll destroy you. Mitsuki Bakugu circles her son's neck with her arm, and he immediately falls silent, despite his enraged expression. Izuku steps forward, not lowering his head. It's not all bad being blind sometimes, he thinks, knowing he'd never be able to maintain eye contact with the woman that for a time had been like a second mom to him, otherwise. Bakugu-san, Kaken. He says, voice measured. I'm sorry. What I did today was wrong, and it will not happen again. He bowed, formal. I apologize. You little. That is enough, Katsuki. Mitsuki says, not letting her son go. Her voice does not betray any emotion. Izuku, get up. He does. I don't know what Katsuki did to make you snap like that, but I know this is not a one-sided issue. Katsuki owes you an apology as well. I'm not apologizing, woman. She sighs, shaking her head. What did I do wrong with you? She wonders aloud, and Kaken grumbles a bit. I'm really mortified, Inko interjects, but Mitsuki holds her hand up. You are both young and will feel like doing brash things at times. Mitsuki says, clearly addressing Izuku. But you are also both smart, and I trust this will be the end of it and you will act civilly toward each other from now on. Am I clear? Yes, Izuku replies. Katsuki. She pushes as the silence stretches. All right, fine. Kaken finally says. I'll leave this little sheet alone from now on. Mitsuki groans. Honey, your next words should have been, I'm sorry. Izuku chuckles, surprising even himself. He knows they all turn to stare. It's okay. He says, his voice a little sad. I think this will be as good as it gets. The image of his old friend, smiling at him, blurred and distorted, comes up to mind. But Kaken is not for anymore. Izuku, for the first time in years, wonders how he looks like now. Izuku also wonders if this is how grief feels like. Mom blessedly leaves him be for the rest of the day, bringing some onigiri upstairs and putting the plate on his desk, not forcing him to come down to the kitchen. He munches on them distractedly, listening to the last episode of All Mightiest podcast. But, to be honest, he's only catching a word out of 5. There's so much to mull over. He made peace with Mickey, he apologized to Kaken, but he still has to talk with Mom. The thought weighs on him like a rock. There's so much in this tangled mess that are his thoughts and feelings. So much even he cannot put his finger on. So much confusion. How do you untangle a ball of yarn if you can't even find where it starts? He's startled out of his thoughts by the booming voice of All Might in his ear. It's when you are at your lowest that you'll have to smile even brighter. If you do that, if you never give up, light will be sure to come. Inspiring words as usual from our favorite hero. The excited voice of his favorite podcaster came back. I swear I could listen to him talk for years. I don't know how he does that. Sincere laughs follow that exclamation. Izuku pauses the podcast and slowly takes the earbud out. He walks to his closet, kneeling down to take a dusty box out. He fishes an All Might figurine out of it, tracing the features with his fingers. All Might is smiling. All Might is always smiling. I will not let you down this time. He whispers. Izuku. Wake up, we have to go somewhere. Izuku mumbles, palming at his nightstand with a hand until he finds his clock. He pushes the button, and the cheerful robotic voice announces that it's 5 in the morning. Mumum. She chuckles, gently swatting at him. Come on, sleepyhead. Izuku drags himself to the bathroom, washes himself, and starts to put on his school uniform until he remembers. He's suspended. He puts on jeans and a shirt instead, shuffles his way downstairs, Mom pushing a backpack in his arms as soon as he emerges on the kitchen doors. Here, take this, you can eat something on the way. Izuku is too sleepy to ask where the hell are they going at that time in the morning, so he just dutifully climbs in the car, and off they go. They drive goes for what feels like hours, and Izuku he's sure he fell asleep at some point, but Mom did not wake him up. What am I sit? He mumbles, rubbing the sleep off of his eyes when he jostled awake by an uneven road. 7 in the morning. Mom answers promptly. We are almost there. 7. He blinks, perplexed. Where? It's a surprise. Mom says, a smile in her voice. They fall silent after that, but it's a comfortable silence, nothing like the tense one that they've experienced just a day prior in that same car. Finally, the car slowly brakes to a stop, and Izuku unbuckles himself, jumping off. As soon as he's out he smells it, the salt in the air, and he hears it, the gentle sound of waves. A kind wind laps at his hair, tickling his nose. Come on. Mom says, cheery, taking his wrist and guiding him. Izuku feels the softness of the sand under his shoes as soon as they set foot in it. Here, give me an hand, I'm putting down a tablecloth. He silently obliges, then let himself being guided to sit down. What are we doing? He asks, after 6 waves. Having a picnic, obviously. Mom replies, rummaging in her bag and putting down paper plates and Tupperwares of food. See that? Izuku hesitates on the word. He hears Mom stopping her movement at his side, And then she sighs. You loved going to this beach when you were little, remember? Izuku does. It was all before his eyes betrayed him, of course. He remembers the color of the sea like a far, unfocused watercolor piece, and he thinks he remembers how a seagull looks like. Maybe. You're not a kid anymore, of course. Mom continues, thoughtful. You're not that kid anymore, but you're still my son. Silence stretches between them. Mom resumes her preparing the picnic, slower. I only wish for you to be healthy and happy. Her voice is lower. But there's only so much I can do, only so much I can control. And you have to walk forward and live your life. But Izuku, I want you to know I will always be there for you, no matter what. Whenever you will need me, I will be there. You can tell me everything and I will listen. I'm proud of you, Izuku. I'm proud of how brave and smart you are. I'm proud of how you took your life in your own hand and charged forward, and I think I should have told you this more. His eyes sting as does his nose. Mom. No, listen. The person you were yesterday, I thought about it all night. For a while, I couldn't accept that the person I saw yesterday was my son, but that was stupid of me. Who you were yesterday, and who you were when you tried to attack Miki-chan. That was still you. Izuku gulps down the knot in his throat. But I know, you are not proud of that person, and I know you want to change, and I know that you will be able to, because there's nothing you can't do, Izuku. And I owe you an apology for not recognizing your suffering, and for turning away, for not wanting to see how much you needed me in your darkest time. Fat tears roll down Izuku's cheeks, a sob shaking his entire frame as he shakes his head. No, you've always been the best mom I could ask for, he hiccups. Don't say that. Inko smiles sadly. Could you forgive me, Izuku? Izuku is not 4 anymore, but as she holds him, his son, sobbing his heart out against her shoulder, Inko wished they could go back to the simplicity and lightheartedness of those days. Then again, maybe not even those days have ever been so simple. The sand is soft and chilly under his naked feet. It's still a bit too early, maybe, but Izuku ignores the thought and jumps into the shallow water lapping at the shore, making a big splash. It's cold, he yells, jumping out as Mom laughs loudly from the tablecloth on the sand. He grins. Her laugh is the best sound in the world. He runs up and down the shore, the wet sand making a squishing sound under his feet, chasing the sounds of the seagulls that indignantly squeaks and take flight if he gets too close. Sweetheart, don't make them too angry or they'll poop on you. If they do, I'll lead them to you. He yells back, laughing. He ends up tiring himself out after a while and stops, facing the sea that gently rumbles wave after wave. The sand is cold under his feet, and the gentle breeze encompasses him in a hug. He's not quite sure how far he is, but after a bit he feels the presence of Mom, walking up to him, silent. He must look a disaster, he thinks. He hasn't even tried to tame his hair, that morning, and he still feels his nose sting after having cried so much. But he really doesn't care. He feels so light, like if he stretches his arms out he will soar like the seagulls. Mom is a comforting presence near him. She always was, she always will be. He's so lucky. Mom, he says, head turned up at the sky. How do the seagulls look like? Izuku will never see the pain that flashes in his mother's eyes, and maybe that's for the best. Inko's voice is strong, not a sign of regret in it. She takes his hand and tells him of the seagulls. The rest of his days of suspension go by in a blur. They went out a lot, did things they never did before. They went to the library, picking up random books, Mom reading to him in a whisper. They went to the mall, Izuku trying to guess how many people were wearing red shirts nearby, Mom either booing or cheering him depending on how close he had been. They went to a cat cafe, Izuku laughing as he ended up covered by warm, soft, pooey cats. Instead of a punishment, the days felt more like a vacation. Wipe that satisfied, smug smile away from your face, mister. Mom reprimands him. It's almost as if she'd read his mind. While I'm glad we had time to speak and reconnect, do not forget you did get suspended, all right? Yes, Mom. He replies, chastised. But he knows she's also smiling. He'd be lying if he said that he wasn't a bit afraid of getting back to school, That's why when he steps outside and he hears Mom softly gasping Mickey-chan, he's absolutely delighted. "Good morning, Midoriya-san," Mickey says, cheerful. "Hey, Mr. Celebrity, ready to get back to school?" "Mr. Celebrity? Why, I guess. Well, I'm off, Mom, have a good day." "Too, sweetheart," she says, and the relief in her voice is so clear she might as well be screaming from the rooftops. "My son has a friend again." Izuku chuckles at the thought, catching up to Mickey, who is humming an off-key tune. Once they are far enough, he turns towards her. "Mr. Celebrity?" he vocalizes, confused. He can hear the grin in Mickey's voice. "Oh, you have no idea." Apparently, the entire, literally, school know about the fact he broke Kaken's nose. It's not surprising in retrospect. Kaken is pretty much a celebrity in their boringly normal middle school. Literally everyone knows who he is and who he will one day become, so the fact that he got his butt handed to him by blind, quirkless Midoriya Izuku spread like wildfire. "Oh God," he whispers, after Mickey caught him up with the gossip. "He's so not gonna be happy with this." "Oh, he's not," she says in a forcefully uninterested tone. "But it's not like there's much he can do. Both of you are in the spotlight now, everyone knows what a piece of shit he is, and if he dares turn a single hair on your head, everyone will turn against him. He's cornered and there's nothing he can do about it, and it's delightful." Something dark squirms in his chest, something akin to vengeful pride, and a little voice whispers in his ear that he deserved it. Really, Kaken deserved it all. But he made a promise. He promised he would not let All Might down again. He would strive to do better, always. "Mickey," he says, and the serious tones stopped her in her tracks, her attention completely on him. "I understand why you feel that way about Kaken, and I'm grateful for you wanting to look out for me, but..." He hesitates, unsure about how to put into words his feelings. "But what I did doesn't make me any better than him. And I made a promise." He continues, honest. "I promised I would do better. So, please, don't say those things anymore. Because I think you are a good, kind person, Mickey, and I have no doubt you can do better too." She's staring at him, he can feel it. "Okay," she says after a while, and her voice sounds strangled, like she's almost in tears. "Let's do better. Together." Izuku beams. "Together." Midoriya, that was like, so cool. He's not sure who the voice belongs to, but he hears Kaken's strangled, indignant noise behind him. But no explosion comes. "Appreciate the sentiment," he replies, even. "But I don't think I did a good thing, so please, don't take example from it." The silence that follows tells him of exchanged looks between peers with working eyes, but he finds himself not being bothered by it. He walks to his desk, not adding anything anymore. The silence behind him, he's not sure what to make of it. "What game do you think you are playing?" Izuku has just come out of the bathroom when the voice cornered him. "Don't understand?" He replies, sincere. Kaken's breath is hot on his face, dangerously close. "What? You sucker punch me like a coward and now play the part of the little blind angel that can do no wrong. Do you find this funny?" "I apologized." Izuku replies, frozen in place. "And I meant it. I'm sorry I hit you, Kaken. I don't want to play any game." "Don't," Kaken interrupts him. "Stop calling me that. You're so annoying." Izuku has nothing to reply with, so he doesn't. "Okay, here's the deal." Kaken continues. "I will keep living as if you don't exist, and go to you once I'm out of this shithole, and I will leave you behind in the dust, where you belong to. And if you even think of breathing in my general direction again, I will end you. Are we clear? I just want to be friends with you again." Izuku yells in his mind, but instead he says, "Crystal." Kaken shows him against the wall, as if punctuating what he just said, before walking away. Izuku takes a deep breath and tries not to cry. It's like 1 step forward, 3,000 steps back with, "Kaken, do better." All Might says in his mind. "Do better," he repeats to himself. "Do better. Do better." As life is, he finds himself having to break the unspoken promise of not breathing in Kaken's direction when his childhood friend gets kidnapped by a pile of sludge and apparently no one but the blind boy seems up to the task of going helping him. But that's a story that's yet far in the future. Ichiko-san makes a thoughtful hum after his proposition. He started to study under her again, and one day he stopped after a particularly brutal series of push-ups, an idea forming in his mind. Ichiko-san, he said as the woman was just about to ask why he stopped. I was thinking, could we possibly add a form of meditation to my training? Meditation? She repeated. Izuku got back up on his feet, dabbing the sweat from his forehead away with his wrist. Yes, I find myself troubled, sometimes. Like I'm a RBB band stretched too far, about to snap. He explains, thoughtful. Like when I attacked Mickey. And Bakugu. The words hang in the air, unspoken. So I thought, maybe something to help me stay focused could be useful. And Ichiko-san hummed. That's a good idea, actually. She says after a while. I'm afraid it is out of my area of expertise, though. Izuku deflates a bit. Ah. Don't make that face, kiddo. She says, ruffling his hair. I'll look into it and see what I can do. I have a lot of friends. I'm sure some of them will push us in the right direction. Turns out, meditation is exactly what Izuku had unknowingly needed to discover a whole new world that was just out of his reach. It started so slowly. Ichiko-san consulted with a friend, spoke to them about Izuku's situation, and together they studied something for him. Ichiko-san met him at the gym and put something in his hands. Try put these on. Curious, Izuku palmed at the object. They felt like headphones, big and bulky, the type that completely covered his ears. Izuku didn't like those models at all, as they made it too hard for him to hear the outside world. Come on. Ichiko-san nudged him, and Izuku unwillingly complied. As soon as the headphones slipped over his ears, the entire world stopped existing. He could only hear the insistent thumping of his heart in his temples, his breath whooshing down towards his lungs. He scrambled to get them off, not even realizing he fell on his but until the object fell down with a thud. Wah! Noise-canceling headphones. Ichiko-san said. The really good kind. Izuku blinked, slowly noticing his own short breathing. I know you're scared. Ichiko-san continued. That's why I asked Mickey to don't attend with us today. I'm sure you wouldn't have liked to have her see you like this. Izuku gulped, slowly rising back up to his feet. His knees felt like jelly. I know you rely only on sound to orientate yourself. She put a gentle hand on his shoulder. I can't imagine how it must feel for you. But I honestly think these will help you find yourself. Izuku turned his head up, wondering how Ichiko-san looked like in that moment. Go deep and find yourself, Izuku. She whispered, and those words were enough for Izuku to know this woman deeply, unwavering believed in him. Slowly he nodded. It was so hard at first and so slow. The headphones scared him. They left him open and vulnerable. Someone could sneak up to him and plant a knife in his back and he'd be none the wiser until the blade would have sunk deeply into his body. Sometimes the silence, the absolute lack of anything, made him feel so little and so lost, and he'd have to scramble to get the headphones off, tears stinging in his eyes. Ichiko-san wouldn't comment, guiding him through a series of breathing exercises instead. Izuku managed to put the headphones on without completely panic a little longer every time. And then he started to take them home. And then he started to put them on the subway while going to and from school. The first time he tried that he almost puked on a poor, unsuspecting woman that kindly asked him if he felt sick. It was so utterly terrifying to be isolated in that way, while surrounded from perfect strangers. But he pushed on. Do better. The first time it happened, Izuku was so confused. Mom, I think something is wrong. He said over breakfast. He explained to her of the lights. He started to feel lights. Faint, like dying stars barely visible in a city-polluted night sky. But they were there, nonetheless, tickling at his brain. Izuku had a taste of a PRD of his life he'd long forgotten, as he got driven back and forth from doctor to doctor trying to understand what was wrong with him. But nothing came up, just as nothing came up when he lost his sight at the age of 4. His eyes were still not working. Unseeing. They even scanned his brain, in fear of something bad growing in there, but he came out of it perfectly clear. They were left only with a whole lot of nothing in the end. But these lights, Mom asked. Do you think they are, I don't know, lamplights? Something like that? Izuku shook his head. He was not getting his sight back. This was something else. It was hard to explain. I don't know. He replied in the end. I don't know how to explain this. When I'll find the right words, I will tell you. Okay, honey. Mom whispered, a gentle hand covering his. It didn't take it long for him to finally click the pieces into place, once he was finally given a rest from all this doctor visiting. It was the headphones. Of course it was not the headphones, per se, but something shifted in him from the moment he'd started using them to meditate. Something that maybe had always been there, and he just hadn't known until the chance was given to him. He could not rely on hearing anymore when he wore them. So something had to change, something was forced to change and grow stronger. Izuku had a theory, and he was going to test it as much as possible. Inko smiled as she watched her son almost vibrate with excitement. She told her he had a surprise to show all of them when they'd next meet at Ichiko-san's gym on a Sunday, and once they arrived the same kind of smile opened on Ichiko and Mickey's faces when they witnessed Izuku's plain happiness. Okay. Izuku took in a deep breath. Okay, so there's something I want to try, so hear me out. They were sitting with their back against the wall, the four of them. Izuku fished his noise-canceling headphones from his shoulder sack and walked into the center of the room. I'm going to put these on. He explained. The three of you, I need you to walk around me, choose a random spot in the gym and stand there. I'll give you 15 seconds, okay? They exchanged puzzled looks, but they complied once Izuku slipped the headphones on and started to count. At the end of the 15 seconds, Inko expected to see him take off the headphones, but that didn't happen. Instead, Izuku slowly turned around himself, then he walked toward Mickey, which was the closest to him. He put the point of his fingers on her shoulders. Mickey, he said. Inko jumped, her eyes going wide. Izuku made his careful way toward Ichiko-san, put his fingers on her arm. Ichiko-san. He was smiling. Then he turned and walked towards her, not a step out of place, making a beeline for her. The walk seemed endless. His hand was hot on her cheek. Mom, he said softly. I can see you. Chaos ensued. Izuku slipped off the headphones and Inko started bawling, hugging him so tight Izuku made a noise not unlike a squeaky toy. Ichiko-san was speechless, her mouth open in a perfect O, as did Mickey's, before she yelled and started jumping up and down, laughing. Izuku, that was sick. She exclaimed. How did you do that? I can't breathe. Izuku was palming at her forearm, and she finally let him go. He took a big, gulping breath, before smiling timidly. I take in the experiment was successful. He added, a little blush rising to his freckled cheeks. Successful? That was super insane, dude, how? Mickey yelled, jumping on him, too excited to stand still. Inko dabbed the tears out of her eyes, adding with a trembling voice. I think we will all love to hear how. Izuku beamed. He told them of the lights, of his experiments. He told them how he'd made his way to school and back for an entire week, ditching his cane, wearing the headphones. Inko thought she might have a heart attack right there and then. He told them of the lights. It's hard to explain. He said, gesturing wildly. Everything has a light. Everything. And if I concentrate I can feel it. And every person has a light too, and each one is different. Mickey, do you remember when I sneaked up to you the other day, and you thought your classmates helped me prank you? It wasn't like that. I just focused and I could feel your light, your very own light, in the middle of the cafeteria, and I knew it was you, even if we were surrounded by hundreds of other students. You little sheet. Mickey replied, but there was no venom in her voice. Only happiness, deep and truly. I wanted to make sure, today. Izuku scratched at the back of his head. I mean, I'm not that good at it yet. I still need a lot of concentration. It took me so long to pinpoint you in the cafeteria without the headphones, but I think that's it. This is it. What, sweetheart? Inko asked, breathless. This is my quirk. Inko wondered what kind of cruel god would take her son's ability to see away, just to give him back a different kind. But seeing Izuku's unadulterated joy at his discovery, seeing him trying and failing to explain what he could now see, it's like feeling colors that I don't remember existing. Mom, I wish I could show you. With a huge smile on his face, she couldn't find it in herself to be mad. Izuku wasn't quirkless anymore. And in his own, personal way, he wasn't blind anymore. What could a mother possibly ask for? Ichiko-san took the news in great stride and with gusto. We are going to take these lights, and we are going to make them so strong people will envy your ability to see. She said, by God, Izuku, I will make you the hero with the best eyesight in the world if it's the last thing I do. Yeah. Izuku yelled, pumping his fist into the air. Miki sometimes felt like Izuku was walking too fast for her. Hell, he wasn't walking, he was sprinting in full force. He was so far, already, somewhere where she couldn't reach anymore, and sometimes the thought made her sad. But most of the time she was just happy. You know, I don't think the call of the hero it's for me, she said to him once. But I like your idea. Being useful and helping others, I like that. I think I could do something like that. Whatever you will decide to do, you will be great at it. Izuku replied, dead serious. You already saved me after all. Days went by so fast, it's as if they flied. Izuku thrown himself body and mind in his training, he and Ichiko-san studied together so many ways to refine his newfound ability. Izuku spent a considerable amount of time strategizing, testing and stretching the limits of his quirk, throwing all kind of ideas at the wall and see what stuck. He still had limits. He still couldn't read a street sign, or a text without the voiceover. He still couldn't order from a menu without having someone read it to him. He still couldn't see the new All Might merchandise he's sure he'd love. But he could feel so much more. He could feel Miki from 3 blocks away, her light faint in the distance and yet unmistakable. He could feel Kaken's nervous, jittering energy, and avoid him accordingly. What can you do? He could find his way through a crowd easily. He could put a name into his mind to every little road and shop around his school by the way the lights of those walking the streets reflected on them. He could feel if someone was angry or sad or happy or all sorts of feelings, really. He could easily sidestep those that still thought it was funny to try bump into him on purpose. He could recognize a friendly cat and pet it, and stay away from an angry dog defending its territory. He could feel the water, full of life even if it was only puddles left after the rain, and jump over it. There was so much to feel, and Izuku filled his eyes with it until he felt his brain could explode. As life likes to do, more surprises awaits him. He ends up meeting his number 1 hero in an underpass as he makes his way back home, happily humming to himself. He perceives something amiss in his radar, as he started to call his quirk, a light behind him that seemed to suddenly come from below, and he dodges just in time the attack of something smelly and sounding quite unpleasant. Demon kid. The thing says, you're fast. Maybe you're just slow? He asks instead, and the thing growls, trying to attack again. Izuku dodges attack after attack, thinking. He has his backpack, but not much of use in there, except for his folded cane. He doesn't really use it anymore and he just brings it with him out of habit, so it might as well make for a decent weapon. Do not worry, for I am here. The booming, familiar voice freezes him in place, and he takes a muddy smack to the face. EW. Gross. He mutters to himself, shaking the offending semi-liquid away. When he focuses back after the hit, there's no way he could possibly mistake who is in front of him even had he not recognized the voice. All Might's light is all-encompassing. Are you okay, boy? Why yes. He stammers. God, his favorite person in the whole world, besides Mom. And Miki. And Ichiko-san is right in front of him. He thinks he's allowed a bit of over-emotion. Could, please, step back while I take care of this villain. Yes, sir. Like he's going to argue with All Might. He's not quite sure what is going on as All Might struggles with the villain, so Izuku forces himself to focus. He could use this opportunity, trying to concentrate and see in his own way, trying to distinguish between the movements. All Might is almost easy to feel. His sheer power is elegant, his punch is perfect. Old memories of a time when he still could see that amazing smile and the blonde hair comes back to him, and he's 4 years old all over again. The other, not so easy. Izuku imagines he must be some sort of shapeshifter, seeing the unpredictable way his light moves. He's hard to make out at first, but Izuku focuses and focuses until he can finally really feel the mud. Of course. The guy's body must be made completely out of mud. Something rolls and gently stops right at Izuku's feet. He palms down, realizing All Might must have dropped whatever he was carrying in order to help him. When Izuku feels the neck of a bottle under his fingers, an idea forms in his mind. Please, do not waste my time. All Might says. He's not taunting, his voice is open and honest. We both know there's no way you could win this fight, so I think it's better if you come with me willingly. F you. The villain yells and All Might sighs. All Might, sir. Catch. Izuku yells and throws. He trusts in his aim. He has practiced his aim until his arms felt like they were about to fall off, and his stomach tried to rebel to him. Over and over and over. All Might catches. Imprison him. Izuku yells. He cannot be sure, but it feels like All Might is smiling at him now. Good thinking, boy. Oh God, the praise. Izuku is dying. The fight doesn't last long after that, and the villain ends up humiliatingly imprisoned in a soda bottle. Toshinori slips it in his breath pocket, as the young boy collected his few groceries and is now handling them to him with a smile that could light up a room. My thanks. He says, smiling back. What is your name, boy? I'm Izuku. Izuku Midoriya, sir. The boy replies, excited, looking up at him. And Toshinori looks into the unmoving washed-out green, into milky white pupils visible behind the mess curly hair, and realizes. The boy is blind. The boy that he distinctly saw dodge a series of fairly quick attacks, light on his feet and clearly used to some kind of training, the boy that had thrown him the bottle at the perfect height and perfect speed, the boy that has easily collected his spilled groceries and orderly put them back into the little plastic bag. The boy is blind. The boy is still looking at him. He can't actually, don't be stupid, he's probably just doing so to be polite, as if waiting for something. Toshinori coughs, forcing himself out of his stupor. You did good, young Midoriya, he says, and he means it. You seem rather apt at this. The young Midoriya let out a little chuckle, his cheeks reddening. I work out, he says. An understatement in Toshinori's eyes. Sir, I'm sure you get this a lot, but you're, like, my favorite hero. I do. Toshinori admits, softly. And every time it's pleasing to hear just as the first. The boy chuckles again, almost vibrating with excitement. And I know you also probably get this a lot as well. He continues. But you're a great inspiration to me, and every time I'm down and think I can't go on, I can hear your voice cheering me on, and then I can get back up, and you've inspired me to do better every day. So, thank you. Toshinori blinks, and the silence stretches for a second too long. I'm sorry, the boy stammers, pale green eyes finally breaking contact. That was maybe a little, No, Toshinori says softly. I don't get that as much as you think. It was very moving. Thank you, young Midoriya. I'm honored you think of me that way. Oh God, the young Midoriya looks like he's about to pass out from excitement. That is never not adorable, but somehow seems even more so coming from this boy. A sting of pain lets itself know. He should leave. His time is almost up, and he should definitely leave. But he cannot help it. Toshinori has to know one last thing before bidding farewell to his young fan. There's something I wish to ask you, young Midoriya, hoping I'm not prying. Anything, sir. Are you? He cannot really think of a way to put it tactfully, so he opts for honesty. Are you blind? Midoriya jumps a bit, his eyes going wide. The sole of his shoes scratches at the asphalt in an almost childish gesture. I am, sir. Oh, Toshinori is so screwed. The boy seriously looked like he was about to faint when Toshinori asked him if he'd so kind as of walking him to the nearest police station. I'm not experienced with the neighborhood, it would be extremely helpful if you could accompany me. There really is no need. He could have just asked for a general direction and that would have been enough. But Toshinori wants to know more about this brilliant young man that destiny has put in front of him, and this seems like the perfect occasion. Of course. Midoriya yells, before putting his hands over his mouth. I'm sorry. Of course, although I should call my mom first, if that is okay with you, sir? Toshinori nods, before remembering the boy is blind and mentally smacking himself. Of course, I wouldn't want your mother to worry. It'll only be a minute. Midoriya stammers, fishing his phone out of his pocket and murmuring, call mom. Into it. Time. No, I'm fine. I will be a bit late, I'll explain later. No. Toshinori is racked by a coughing fit. God damn it. His time just goes by so fast. He looks at the boy, his back turned toward Toshinori, concentrated on his call. But he can't really see him, right? Toshinori let himself shift. Izuku closes the call with one last hasty, love you mom bye, before turning toward All Might, heart beating in his throat. His favorite hero has complimented him and thanked him, and now wants him to walk with him. Oh my god, Izuku's going to. Something is different when he turns. All Might it's still there, of course. His light it's still the same but less blinding. Like it's about to go out. All done, young Midoriya? All Might asks and then coughs. Please do not mind my voice. I caught a bit of a sore throat that's been plaguing me lately. Izuku feels it. He's lying. All Might is lying. About what? When the boy turned, he froze almost as if he could actually see Toshinori. That wasn't the case. The way the boy's eyes looked, it was obvious, really. What was that made him go silent and wide-eyed? Then? Maybe it was just the prospect to walk with him, but... All done, young Midoriya? He asked and coughed. She'd his voice. Please do not mind my voice. I caught a bit of a sore throat that's been plaguing me lately. Young Midoriya blinked and relaxed. Of course. He replied, strangely serious. Okay, this way, sir. They walked. All Might seemed oddly interested in him. And as much as that made his heart swell and his chest feel light, Izuku was unsure. Was he always this expansive with all his fans? Izuku couldn't imagine it. The man was the most beloved hero in the world. There was no way he'd have the time to get so interested in each one of his fans. He wondered what made All Might so curious about him. Okay, get that ego and squash it now, Midoriya. If you allow this to go to your head, you're soon gonna become Kaken too. Sir, can I ask you something a bit rude? He says in a moment of silence. All Might chuckles. Well, I did ask a rather personal question to you earlier. I guess it's only fair. Why, Izuku hesitates, unsure about how to put this without offending his idol. I'm sure you're a very kind person, but I cannot imagine you spending so much time getting to know all your fans. That's like physically impossible. So, why me? And perceptive too, Toshinori thought. The boy has turned toward him, his eyebrows a little creased. And hand was going up and down his sleeve, in a probably unconscious nervous gesture. That is indeed true. Toshinori weighs his words. As much as I would love to be able to spend time with all my fans, that is simply not feasible. Today, you've happened to cross my path, and you've done something I simply could not think was possible for a boy in your situation. Toshinori hadn't thought much of the boy's ability he'd witnessed, at first. It was pleasing, sure, to see a young man such as Midoriya simply not relying on his quirk and actually being physically trained, but not so rare. That was until he realized that Midoriya was blind. Not sure I'm following. Midoriya replies, perplexed. Young Midoriya, I saw you going toe-to-toe with a villain. You got hit only when I accidentally distracted you. Which I should apologize for, actually. The boy scratches the back of his head, embarrassed. It was nothing, really. And, Toshinori continues. Under pressure, you thought of a solution with what you had available on your hands, and precisely thrown the bottle at me so I could catch it without having to get both my hands off the villain. I mean no offense when I say this, but I think you understand me when I say this is quite the feat for any boy your age, let alone someone that cannot see. Midoriya was so red that the greenish hue of his hair made him look like a little, adorable tomato. No offense taken, sir. He mutters, looking positively like someone that took the exact contrary of offense from his sentence. You understand my interest now? Midoriya nods, wordlessly. Tell me, could it possibly be that you're aiming to become a hero? Midoriya basically jumps in his skin, turning his head towards him, eyes as big as plates. It has been my dream since I was a kid. He whispers, as if he's afraid the words might break once out of his mouth. Toshinori nods, satisfied. I'm glad. I'm sure you have a brilliant path in front of you. I hope to be able to see you grow into a fine hero one day. This is it. Izuku has died and is now in heaven. There's no way this is real. There's so much he wants to say, but the words stop in his throat and gets all garbled and messy, and Izuku knows that if he tries to talk now, all that would come out would be something akin to that weird key-mashing Mickey replies to him with whenever he sends her some funny text. So he shuts his mouth and nods. They walk in companionable silence for a bit. All Might feels lost in his thoughts, and as curious as Izuku is to know what he's thinking about, he's really not about to pry, not when he's not even able to string a single, coherent sentence together. Izuku perceives a light suddenly coming from his right and tenses. Whoever it is, stumbles into All Might with a oof before running away as if he hadn't just crashed into the symbol of peace. Hey! Izuku exclaims, outraged. Walk less slowly next time, a-holes. The guy replied, clearly already far. Izuku can't believe his ears. Man, some people, he mutters, I don't know what that guy's deal was, but if he didn't notice who he just crashed into, he must be more blind than me. All Might let out a little choked sound and then starts laughing heartily. Izuku feels himself blushing, satisfied. That laugh is different from the one All Might usually uses, it feels more personal. Izuku always heard the phrase, don't meet your heroes, and while he can understand the meaning of it, he cannot find himself agreeing with it at the moment. All Might is just as wonderful as Izuku has always imagined him to be. They reach the police station a little too early for Izuku's tastes. Oh, thank you so much, young Midoriya. All Might says, putting a hand on his shoulder. You've been of utmost help today. Izuku cannot help it. As selfish as it is, he doesn't want to separate from his idol yet. With what he knows must only be described as a pout, he wordlessly nods. Silence stretches as All Might probably stares at him. Could you please wait for me outside? All Might says, his words almost calculating. I'll make sure the villain is properly cared for and then walk you home. For safety, you see. Izuku's heart jumps in his throat, and then he beams. Of course. For safety. He can just feel the smile All Might gives him before entering the police station, and as he does so, Izuku watches his light go bright and golden and blinding again. Weird. After explaining the situation to the starstruck police officer, Toshinori slips the bottle out of his pocket. The bottle is not there. He frantically thinks. The guy in a hurry accidentally crashing into him. That's when it must have fallen out. He had been too smitten with Midoriya's surprising sense of humor to notice. Stupid, 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 stupid. You're such a effing idiot. A voice in his head that sounds suspiciously like Gran Torino reprimands him. Toshinori really cannot argue with that. Izuku sits outside on a pot, the bush leaves tickling his neck as he swings his legs back and forth. He knows it's kind of a childish, but he can't help it, he's just too excited to sit still. He jumps when he hears yelling in the distance. He focuses, just in time to perceive a familiar light rapidly sliding toward the center of the city. No, wait. Two familiar lights. Oh no. Toshinori crashes into the boy just as he steps out the police station, sending him tumbling on the sidewalk. Young Midoriya, are you? Before he can even finish the sentence, the boy is back on his feet, frantic, grabbing at his shirt. All Might, that mud guy, Kaken, he took him. He took Kaken. Toshinori doesn't know what the boy is talking about. He puts his hands on Midoriya's shoulder. My boy, I'm afraid I will not be able to walk you home today. Toshinori says regretfully. You are not responsible for my mistakes, but nonetheless, I need to remedy to them. Where did the villain go? Izuku points in the direction of the city center, wordlessly. His hands let All Might's shirt go as he flexes down. All Might wait. And he's off. Izuku watches the blinding light soar away, a sting of sadness in his chest. And Kaken. All Might technically didn't tell Izuku not to follow, right? Toshinori unwillingly shifts back just as he's about to hit the floor. Shit. Luckily for him, he manages to stick a semi-decent landing. His body does not agree with his score of semi-decent and lets itself know, shaking him with coughs as blood drips from his chin. He made such a mess. God, he's the worst. A giant foot comes in his field of vision. There's a large crowd, but they are all turned away from him, thankfully. Please, everyone, stand back. A female voice booming over the chaos. Little columns of smoke are starting to raise into the sky. Make sure you and everyone around you is out of danger. Let us take care of this. Mount Lady, that's her name, Toshinori is sure. A rather new entry into the hero world. There are others, he can see them, and he let out a little sigh of relief. God, he is the worst. Makes a mess of things, disappoints a young, eager fan, and then is relieved when others are behind him, cleaning up his sheet. What would Sensei think of him? He wobbles to the other side of the road, trying to see over the crowd. At least his considerable height comes in handy, for once. It is the mud guy, indeed. Strangely enough, there are explosions coming out of him. That was what must have lit all the fires, but Toshinori is perplexed. Why did the villain not use those explosions against him in the first place? His heart almost skips a beat when he realizes, there's a boy trapped in the mud, cannot be older than young Midoriya? His heart definitely skips a beat when he sees Midoriya pop out the front of the crowd, charging against the villain. Kaken's light is so distressed. Izuku didn't really have the time to be afraid during his encounter with the mud villain. He focused into how to fight back at first, and then All Might arrived, and how could Izuku possibly be afraid after that? But, of course he should have been. Of course Kaken is afraid. For all his brashness and big words, Kaken is still just a boy, like him. And, where's All Might? He should pop up in the crowd with his golden light, but Izuku can't feel it, despite the advantage All Might had over him. Izuku scans the crowd. It's hard to focus, when everyone's lights are so frantic and there are other heroes too. He can hear them trying to find a breach into the villain's defenses. Finally he finds it. All Might's light is weak again. What is going on? Kaken screams something unintelligible over the general noise, and his light is so scared. And suddenly nothing really matters anymore. No matter how much Kaken has hurt him, of many tears Izuku spilled because of his old friend. Kaken was scared. Izuku charges before he has the time to even realize his feet are moving. It all happens in a matter of seconds. He thinks he hears All Might scream, Midoriya, no, but it's hard to tell over the cacophony. More probably it's a trick of his imagination. Izuku feels the warmth of living fire in the reflection of Kaken's light. He grabs at it without slowing his dash. It's a piece of something, maybe wood burning lively at the tip, the warmth it's almost unbearable. It's perfect. He thinks he hears Kaken go, Izuku, but it's hard to tell over the cacophony. That is surely a trick of his imagination. Kaken hasn't called him with his given name in years. The mud guy is more still now, trying to contain the uncontainable force that is Katsuki Bakugu, less shifty and liquid. Why? Izuku focus until it's just the two of them in his dark world, until he feels like he's not even looking at Mud Guy's light, but directly into his soul, down to his most vulnerable parts, and jumps. The burning stick sinks directly into Mud Guy's eye. The pro-heroes take him and Kaken away as soon as Mud Guy releases Kaken, screaming in pain. What do you think you were doing? That was dangerous. Are you crazy? There are voices reprimanding him, but Izuku pays them no mind. He's too busy trying to open back the scope of his radar, like a camera lens unfocusing away from a single object. His heart roars in his veins and his breathing is short and ragged. Kaken's light at his side is still, unnaturally so. As if he's concentrating his entire being on something. Izuku gulps, all the noises washing over him, as if he just snapped out of a dream. He doesn't have time to think about Kaken's sudden focus on him. All Might's light is back, right in front of him. He must have jumped into the fight not long after Izuku and Kaken had been dragged away. But something is different, a different feeling to it like shame. Izuku is far too accustomed to that particular feel. All Might is ashamed. But what was that? Things have quieted down. Police forces and firefighters and ambulances have arrived. Izuku and Kaken got dragged over to a couple of paramedics that checked them and ordered them not to move. Kaken was unharmed, for the most part, and Izuku was definitely unharmed except for a small scrape on his palm that he got when he fell down after sinking the burning stick into the mud guy's eye. After the paramedics were satisfied with their condition and left them with a bottle of water each sitting inside one of the ambulances, Kaken asked that question. Izuku wasn't even sure what he was referring to. So many things have happened that pinpointing exactly what Kaken meant with that seemed an impossible task. Then again, knowing Kaken, he probably meant the whole thing from the very first moment Izuku has emerged from the crowd. Izuku is turned toward Kaken, not sure if he's actually looking at him. There's so much he could say. You looked like you needed help. Are the words that find their way out of Izuku's throat, weakly. Kaken hesitates. You can't see, dipshit. But his words lack the usual bite. Izuku smiles sadly. No, he says. I guess not. Despite Kaken's loud, vehement protests, they are not allowed to leave until their parents come pick them up. Kaken's mother is the first to arrive, crushing Kaken in what Izuku can only imagine is a bear hug, going by his muffled protests. Izuku, she's breathless after finally putting Kaken down. They told me something of what has happened on the phone, did you really? Before she could finish the sentence, Mom arrives. Izuku! Now it's his turn to get crushed into a bear hug. Izuku, oh my god, I was so scared, don't you ever scare me like that again? Mom, I'm fine, he tries to say. I really am, look, I'm fine. I'm fine. Mom let out a watery sigh, her hands on his cheek, caressing him frantically. He let her hug him again without a protest. She deserves as much after the scare he must have given her. Her light turns from worried to absolutely enraged. Young man, she says, steel in her voice, hands like bricks on Izuku's shoulder. I got told on the phone you charged against a villain. You did not charge against villain, right? Izuku was screwed. Toshinori made his way over the ambulance where the two boys were sitting. He had no juice left him, wobbling in his skeletal, his normal, form over there. He did not like the idea of approaching them in his current body, but he trusted young Midoriya would recognize him, at least. It was clear that the boy had much more to him than his plain-looking exterior let on. It was also clear that the boy had no self-preservation whatsoever, and as hypocritical as it was of Toshinori, he was not gonna let this slide. The boy better cram in that curly head of his that getting himself killed before reaching the adult age was not the way to become a hero. Two women were standing in front of the ambulance, both of them with their arms around their respective sons. It was pretty clear at first sight who they were. Then the woman that could only be Midoriya's mother, going by the glaring similarity between them, put her hands on Midoriya's shoulder. Her gaze would have scared Toshinori had it been pointed at him. He once knew someone that would point that kind of gaze at him. Young man, I got told on the phone you charged against a villain. You did not charge against villain, right? Toshinori sighs. The boy deserved a scolding, but not getting the blame that he was overdue on his shoulders would be unfair and cruel toward young Midoriya. Ma'am, a word if you please. He says, the woman turning toward him like an eagle. She really reminds him of a certain someone. Midoriya blinks and then his shoulders relax. But he immediately shut his mouth, just as Toshinori was about to internally lose his sheet at the prospect of the boy letting those two words out. Young Midoriya looks at him. He had the distinct feeling he was literally looking at him, as impossible as that was, frowned, and then said nothing else, a knowing look on his face. The jig was up. And Midoriya Izuku was such a puzzling mystery in his mind, now. Izuku bit down his tongue to stop himself from blurting out All Might's name. His light was dim again, and he felt the panic in it as soon as Izuku has opened his mouth. All Might? He must have looked something different than usual. It was the only conclusion he could possibly come to. The guy that bumped them in the streets, the non-reaction from his mom, she was as much of an All Might fan as Izuku was. There was no way she wouldn't have freaked out at seeing him approach them, no matter how angry at Izuku she was. It all made sense. Izuku had no idea how or why, but that was the only sensible, logical conclusion. So he shut his mouth, hoping his face was conveying his silent understanding to All Might. All Might's secret would be safe with him. He'd go to the grave not telling anyone, if necessary. "Do we know each other?" Inko asked, perplexed. Before the sickly-looking, tall blonde man could answer, a police officer approached them, looking for Katsuki. "We need to ask him some questions." "Of course, as his mother, you can come with us," the officer says, addressing Mitsuki. "It'll only take a few minutes." "Of course," she says, and Katsuki, bless his little grumpy soul, does not protest this time, dutifully following the officer despite the deep frown on his face. "See you later, Inko," she says, sounding just as stressed and tired as Inko does. They watch the couple leave, the three of them, before Inko turns back towards the blonde man. "I am responsible for young Midoriya's actions," he says, continuing as if there had been no interruptions. He seems to look slightly relieved, despite the bomb he just dropped on her. "Excuse me?" "No, Mom, don't get mad," Izuku says frantically. "Oh, I mean, sir?" he adds, sounding more confused than anything. "I understand your anger, and I will not shy away from it." The blonde man continues. His voice is vaguely scratchy, and the stain on his shirt looks definitely like blood. He sounds like someone that walked to hell, and then a bit further, and then came back, before walking into hell again. "But if you let me, I would like to explain the matter in a more private setting." He coughs. Inko squints menacingly, both hands firm on her son. "Mom." Izuku's voice is low and serious, and she turns towards him. His face is turned up to her, his unseeing eyes trying to convey a feeling that doesn't quite manage to get through. "If you trust me," Izuku says, "then trust him. Please." It's late, very late, later than Izuku is usually allowed to stay up. He should go to school tomorrow. Inko knows he's not going to school tomorrow. She sighs, watching her son trying to dig a hole in their living room as he mutters to himself God only knows what. She has only caught some words there and then, something about a different form, she really can't make much out of it. Izuku is a constant source of surprises. Just as she thinks she has figured him out at least a bit, there he goes with some new crazy antics. What did she do wrong, and yet so right to get a son like him? A knock on the door, Izuku jumps, all jittery, nervous energy. "Stay there," she says, trying to muster some resemblance of anger in her voice. "Sit down. You're walking a fine line here, mister." Izuku instantly obeys, sitting down on his favorite armchair straight as a plank. When she opens the door, the sickly blonde man is there, with a clean set of clothes, still looking like death warmed over. "Sorry for the lateness," he says. He sounds breathless. "I tried to get things done as fast as possible, but there was a lot of talking with the police forces, and I had to get out of those clothes, you know." He nervously scratches at his head. "Yes, I know." Inko squints. There had been blood on his shirt that afternoon. "Now, I do not know who you are, and I do not care why my son seems to think you are deserving of trust. I'm giving you a chance on his behalf, but you better have a really good explanation of all this before I call the police on you." Izuku gasps in a way that would suggest she just walked up to a deity and spit in their face. He screams. "Rude." Surprisingly enough, the blonde man chuckles. "Young Midoriya, your mother has a fiery spirit. I can see from who you took after," he says. His tone is fond. "You are very lucky. I am but like rude." Izuku sounds frantic, his face flushed. "Sir, I'm really sorry." "You do not decide who I should be sorry for." Inko interrupts, pointing at her son. "And you," she says, turning back toward the man. "Get your butt on my couch and start talking." Izuku groans, hiding his face in his hands. The blonde man sits on her couch, his long legs looks cramped in the space between it and the coffee table that for her and Izuku is usually more than enough. He holds his hand. My name is Toshinori Yagi, he says. But you might know me as All Might. Inko almost faints. Once she's done hyperventilating with the blonde man, All Might, fussing over her with a guilty expression, she turns slowly over her son. Do not look at me like that. Izuku protests. I tried to tell you to stop being rude. All Might Toshinori whatever doesn't seem to react to Izuku's words with other than a blink of very slight amusement. Do not be so hard on your mother, young Midoriya, he says. I deserve a bit of rudeness, seeing how irresponsible I have been today. That's not true. Izuku pouts, childlike. Inko wants to apologize, every single part of her being it's screaming at her to apologize to this man that both her and her son have idolized for as long as Izuku has been able to pronounce words. She doesn't. She catches her breath some more. I don't think there's any need to say that I truly admire you and respect the work you've done in all these years, but I hope you will understand that I still want a solid explanation as of why you, of all people, have put my son in danger today. Strangely enough, Izuku does not protest at her words in the slightest, this time. All Might nods, a deep frown casted on his emaciated features. I'd expect nothing less from you, Miss Midoriya. His voice is both gentle and full of regrets. I'm afraid this might turn to be a long story, sorry for keeping you both up for this long. I hope you will both forgive me for the fact I cannot give you the full story. What I can say to you is that my powers are not infinite. Following an incident around 5 years ago, I found myself being able to rely on them less and less. That is why I now look like the way I do, at least for you, Miss Midoriya. Although I think young Midoriya here has already figured it out, somehow. I suspected something of the sort. Izuku says in a quiet voice. Hopefully you will be able to tell me how later? Izuku nods. Thank you. All Might resumes. I trust in you both that you will not let this information outside this living room. It is imperative that my current status stays hidden as long as it's possible. He continues, explaining to Inko how he just so happened to see Izuku deal with the mud villain after having followed him through the sewers, how impressed he had been with Izuku's agility and his quick thinking. Izuku hid his red face into a pillow at that point, making both of them smile silently, how he asked Izuku to walk him in order to find out more about this young, talented boy, how he let himself get distracted and make a stupid mistake. Oh! Izuku exclaims at that point. It must have been when that guy run into you, isn't it? That's also what I figured. All Might nods. I should have secured the bottle better. Anyway, my mistake costed us a whole lot of grief today, and I'm partially, if not completely, responsible for your actions that followed. Izuku squirms, uncomfortable. You can't blame yourself for that. But I do. All Might interrupts him, and for the first time during that night, his voice turns into steel, serious. Young Midoriya, you are smart and talented, undoubtedly. But what you've done today was stupid, irresponsible, and not something like I thought a boy as brilliant as you would act. Izuku has the decency to look properly ashamed, at least, Inko thinks to herself with a little sigh. I sure hope our little chat didn't go to your head, otherwise I'd be possibly even more disappointed in you. All Might adds, and his words might have been a WHP, seeing at how hard Izuku flinched. No! He says, almost getting out of his seat, before composing himself back again. No, that's not it. I swear. I knew you'd be angry if I followed, but I did it anyway. That is my responsibility, and mine alone. Izuku's voice turned into a whisper during the sentence, and All Might's voice softened once more. Why did you do it then? Kaken. Izuku's voice itches in his throat. The villain took Kaken. How could I turn my back and walk home, just like that? I knew Kaken would be scared, that he would need help. I couldn't leave just like that. Not when I knew that someone out there needed help. Toshinori closes his eyes, a deep sigh passing through him after hearing those words. He shouldn't. There were so many reasons why he shouldn't. I couldn't leave just like that. Not when I knew that someone out there needed help. But in his heart, his stupid, damaged, still beating heart, he knows that the decision is already half made. I see. All Might says thoughtfully after long seconds of silence filled only by the ticking of the clock arms going by. I'm sorry. Izuku says, fists tight in his lap. I know I did a stupid thing, and I know I'm super grounded, Mom. He flashes her a weak smile. But I just could not try to help. Please, try to understand. Inko sighed again, demurely dabbing at her wet eyes, but her voice does not waver. You are in trouble for sure, she says before reaching out and putting a hand on her son's. And I understand that your heart is too big for your own good, Izuku. Sometimes I wish you'd be a little more selfish. Izuku squirms a bit, muttering something unintelligible, as All Might chuckles again. My sensei once told me something like that, a long time ago. He says fondly. You remind me of her very much, Miss Midoriya. Oh my, Inko stutters, her hands flying to her rapidly reddening cheeks. That is a bit much, sir. All Might laughs again. It's a nice laugh. I believe that destiny has put me in a good place today, despite everything that has happened. He says, long, thin fingers crossing in his lap. You are both good people, and if I had to reveal my secret to someone, I'm very glad it happened to be the two of you. The way mother and son blushed was very similar, Toshinori noted. They both started from the ears. Miss Midoriya, I have very many questions about your son, but I must start with this one, Toshinori says, after leaving them both a few instants to calm down. Would you allow me to see after his studies? Inko really faints, this time. Oh, that was embarrassing, she says once she's finally back on her feet. I'm so sorry, I'll go make us all some hot tea. You two can, talk? I'll be right back. She hurries out, and Izuku sinks back into his armchair. Oh my god. He says. Oh my god. You can't just drop things like that. Hadn't Mom fainted, I think I'd have died of an heart attack myself. The words are out before his brain really catches up about who he's talking to, and Izuku slaps both hands on his mouth. But All Might's light feels amused, even possibly fond. I think we will both be less nervous if we start addressing each other a bit less formally, young Midoriya. He says. Does that mean you'll call me Izuku? Because I'd die. I'd literally die. Izuku says, his traitorous mouth moving on its own again. He should just stop talking. His brain-to-mouth filter is clearly fried. Let's avoid premature deaths. All Might says, a laugh in his voice. So, young Midoriya, why don't you tell me about yourself? I tend to overtalk a bit, so I'll try my best to give you the abridged version. Midoriya started, vaguely flustered. So he spoke. Of how he'd always admired heroes and has dreamt of becoming one ever since he'd been able to walk, how he waited and waited for a quirk that he thought never came. How he'd lost his sight at only 4, and lived his life in the dark ever since. In retrospect, that obviously was my quirk manifesting. Izuku said, pulling at his lower lip thoughtfully. I just didn't know yet. I didn't find out until, like, a month and a half ago. Toshinori blinked, perplexed. Please enlighten me? And he did, explaining of how his meditation led to him to the blossoming of his ability, these lights that allowed him to see so much. That's how I realized that you didn't look, well, like you, all the time. Your light shifts with you, and people obviously reacted to you differently, so putting 2 and 2 together I could only come to that conclusion. I see. Toshinori replies, thoughtfully. While they spoke, Inko came back with freshly brewed tea and a plate of cookies she very unsubtle pushed in his direction. There it goes, another person in the constantly growing collection of people that tries to feed Toshinori. Please, for the love of God, eat something. He dutifully grabs a cookie, if only to avoid her pointed look. Could you tell me more about your quirk? For what I gather, these lights you see are unique to every living being. Can you see not biological matter as well? In a sense. Midoriya replies. I don't think not biological matter actually emits a signal I can perceive, but I can still feel it thanks to the living things surrounding it. It's like their lights reflect on surfaces, that way I'm able to feel them and move accordingly, if that makes sense. It does. Toshinori replies, taking a sip of his tea. You said you saw that villain take away your friend, by recognizing their lights. How far were they from you? At the moment the most I'm able to perceive without focusing too much it's about, I'd say, a radius of 200-300 meters, give or take. I've reached around 600 by focusing really hard, but that made me feel very sick. It's hard to perceive the sheer number of things alive around me. Midoriya finished his tea in record time and was now distractedly rolling the empty cup in his hands. I managed to stretch the radius very far since I first discovered my quirk, but at times the input gets overwhelming and I need to turn it off for a bit. Toshinori took his second cookie, distractedly. That is quite impressive, I have to say, he says after taking a bite. Both the scope of your quirk and how much you've been able to refine it after having discovered it only a short time ago. The young Midoriya smiles, red dusting his cheek. I cannot even count the amount of times an ability like yours would have made my work so much easier and saved so many more lives. Toshinori adds, almost too distracted by his own racing thoughts to realize he said that aloud. Impressive. Very impressive. Inko Midoriya let out a little hiccup that shakes him out of his stupor. When he turns to her, her eyes are wet. I'm sorry, she says, her voice trembling. Izuku is a good son, a fantastic one actually. Mom. But he has lived a hard life and has managed to get over so many obstacles only counting on his own strength, and yet, no one but a very selected few around him has ever saw his efforts and recognized his merits. To have someone, no, to have you between all, to see them, thank you. A moment of silence follows the trembly and yet emphatic sentence, before the young Midoriya gets out of his armchair to kneel near his mother, surrounding her in a hug. His unseeing eyes are wet, but he does not cry. Toshinori is just assured yet again that his trust is not wasted with this family. I do not only recognize young Midoriya's merits, he says gently, putting a hand on her shoulder, but yours as well. You've done a fantastic job raising your son, Miss Midoriya. You should be proud. Her sob somehow sounds like music in Toshinori's ears. He bids his farewell at almost 3 in the morning after Inko Midoriya has calmed down enough. There's much to discuss still, but I think we all need to rest for now, he said, taking into young Midoriya's sleepy expression. I will visit in the evening to speak some more, later today, if that is okay with you too? Would you like to come for dinner? Young Midoriya blurted, his mom turning towards him with a frown. Izuku. Oh, please, like you wouldn't love that. He replied, shrugging. I would like to come for dinner, as long as Miss Midoriya promises me not to overdo herself. Toshinori replied. With a little laugh. The woman blushed a bit. Well, I guess dinner it is then. He turned one last time as mother and son waved at him and wished him a good night, slowly making his way back to his new, and still mostly empty, apartment. The night air is chilly, and the few visible stars he can see up in the sky seems to shine brighter than usual that night. He wonders if Sensei would approve of his decision. But first, for the time being, he needs to make some calls, and hope his living friends will agree with the conclusion he has come to. So, would you like to go to UA, young Midoriya? This is already the 3rd time All Might has come for dinner. The first 2 were mostly spent speaking some more of Izuku's life, telling All Might about Mickey and Ichiko and the training he has been going through for the past year and some. I see, you already have a solid basic knowledge of combat, that is really good. All Might said. I would like to speak with your sensei. So that was a point of discussion too, making arrangements. They've been thinking about how to introduce All Might without giving his identity away. I'm sorry, I do not wish to force you to lie to your friends, of course, but I am afraid this is a necessity I cannot negotiate over. When All Might blurted that question out, Izuku almost drops his chopsticks. Of course I would like that. His mind screams at him. But can he? Yes, he discovered his quirk and, yes, thanks to it he was now more independent than ever. But he was still blind. He still had enormous limits. And his strength was only equivalent to the limits of his own body. Could someone like him really make it into UA's hero course? Young Midoriya, I like to think my judgment counts for something. All Might nudges him, gently, like a lion dad nipping at his pups to poke at their egos. So, I'm going to ask again. Would you like to go to UA? Izuku closes his fist. Yes. He says. Yes. I want to go UA. I'm Toshi Shimura, a talent scout from UA. The thin, tall, sickly-looking blonde man in a too-big suit offers his hand. Miss Kobayakwa, young Midoriya has told me much about you, and as I've taken interest in his talents, I would like to speak to you about his training if possible. Ichiko is left speechless for a moment. Izuku looks nervous near them, playing with his fingers, his head going back and forth between her and the man he introduced to her. A talent scout from UA, she breathes out. Izuku, you scored big this time. She grins, grabbing the man's hand in solid grip. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Shimura. I would love to speak to you about Izuku's future. Izuku relaxes so plainly he looks as if he's about to melt. The talent scout that has taken interest in Izuku is kind of an odd guy, but by the way he talks, Mickey realized he probably was a huge dork, just like Izuku. He has been coming to their training sessions on and off, sometimes offering suggestions, mostly just watching. It was clear he deeply respected Mom's training ability, as he nods and hums and writes something down in a little block notes. Sometimes he talks to her too. He's very kind. Young Kobayakawa, I wonder if you also might be interested in a career in NohaIjiachi, like your friend is? Just what? Mickey laughed. No, that stuff ain't for me. She replied. I like training with Izuku and Mom, and I know I'm pretty good at self-defense, but if I have to be honest, I don't want to unleash my quirk onto a living thing ever again. I haven't decided yet what I want to do, but that's okay. I'll find my road, like Izuku did. The man hummed thoughtfully. I see. You seem very driven. I'm sure you will soon find what you really excel into. For now, the one thing I excel into is making Izuku work harder. She replied, grinning, and jumped up. Move your butt, Midoriya. That footing is sloppy as hell. Yes, Izuku replied, grinning with a little salute. The blonde man laughed, clearly satisfied by only God knew what. One time he wasn't alone. He came with a man with long, dark, messy hair and bags under his eyes so big they must be paying rent by now. Izuku had been too focused sparring with Mom to notice, at first, and when he spared a single perplexed look in their direction that won him an butt-to-the-grass moment when Mom flipped him over. Focus, Izuku. Yes, sorry. Came the immediate reply, as Izuku did not waste a single second getting back up on his feet. The two men did not intervene all lesson, whispering between themselves for a while, and when the dark-haired man left, Mr. Shimura had a smile on his face that Mickey could only describe as smug. I have no doubt that with the amount of time we still have and with your excellent teaching, Miss Kobayakwa, young Midoriya will be more than prepared for the entrance exam at UA. But we have a problem. They were sitting around a small plastic table in the garden behind Ichiko's gym, teacups and a tray of sweets from the bakery down the road between them. The table was too small for 5 people, and All Might was hunched over, his knees touching the plastic edges. Downsides of being a giant? Inko guessed with a little internal laugh. What kind of problem? Izuku piped up, a worried frown creasing his eyebrows behind the messy hair. It is no obstacle I do not trust you will be perfectly able to surpass, my boy, but we must prepare. All Might said in a gentle voice. You see, the physical exam usually consists in a point-based system where the contestants must take down as many robots as possible, 3 models of which gives points from 1 to 3 depending on the model you manage to take down, and 1 model which is usually recommended to avoid, as it does not give any point. It is a flawed system. All Might sighed. If I have to be honest, I do not approve of it too much. It gives an unfair advantage to those who possess very physically strong quirks, while undervaluing those that, like you, possess different, more subtle kind of talents. Of course, Izuku muttered, pulling at his lower lip. There's only so much I can do, when I'm simply not strong enough. I doubt I could possibly be able to take down a robot bare-handed. But I have an idea. All Might continue, fishing something from a battered leather bag he brought with him. Hair dryer? Mickey asked, tilting one of her eyebrows. It's just a hunch I have. All Might said, leaning over the table to put the object in Izuku's hand. But young Midoriya, tell me, if you focus on this hairdryer, can you make out the inside components of it? Izuku has never tried something like that. He usually did not pay too much attention to not living things, just as much as he needed to be able to move freely. He blinked, closing his fingers around the plastic shell of the object and focused. He could feel a bit. It was kind of a mess, all those cables and little parts and things Izuku really did not have any knowledge of. I think I can, he said after a good couple of minutes, after everyone around the table had silently, patiently waited for him. Good, All Might said. We have a plan then. His home turned into a laboratory, pretty much. There were old, broken appliances everywhere. From washing machines to old phones. Opened and dismantled, as Izuku studied them in and out. Inko has sort of given up to the controlled chaos. Where are you two even getting all this stuff from? She asked a little worried as he and All Might transported in a mini fridge. Oh, you know that beach that no one goes to anymore because of all the garbage? Izuku replied. Ugh, fine, just make sure you don't bring bugs or rats in please. She sighed. And I want this stuff out as soon as you're done with your exam. She added, severe. All Might seemed kind of embarrassed as he apologized. Izuku had never imagined he'd end up having to learn the intricacies of technologies, one day, but it certainly gave him a new perspective. There's so much I've always taken for granted, he said one day, as he rummaged inside one of those super old, bulky TVs. I've never thought about how complicated all these everyday objects we use really are. All Might hummed. That is true. But it's a good realization. Makes you appreciate even more what you have, doesn't it? Izuku grinned, his cheeks smudged with oil, but then the smile slid off his face. All Might. Yes. A gulp. Do you really think this will work? Toshinori let a couple of seconds pass, weighing his words on his tongue. I know for a fact that the robots are designed to have weak points. To present young boys and girls like you with state-of-the-art technology would be an unfair and borderline cruel challenge. So, yes, I believe that if you refine your ability, you will be able to see those weak points and exploit them. He says. Young Midoriya hums, wrinkling his nose in distaste. Is something the matter? Toshinori asks, surprised by the expression. You're not giving me an unfair advantage over the others by telling me this, right? The question comes as a surprise, and at the same time, not a surprise at all. You are honest to a fault, my boy. Toshinori chuckles. Do not worry about that. The exam has been the same for years. All your peers will be able to look into it and prepare accordingly, if they so longing. Young Midoriya is watching him so intently that Toshinori just knows he's probing his light, making sure he's not lying, as he once mentioned in passing that he would notice if someone was lying to him. Don't do that. He reprimands him, good-naturedly. It's kind of rude, my boy. The young Midoriya he first met would probably have stammered an apology, blushing to the roots of his hair. This one, instead, flashes his tongue to him, playfully. How fast they grow. Izuku's eyes snap open 5 minutes before the alarm he set the day before. It's the big day. In a bit of daze, he shuffles out of bed. His clothes for the day are ready. His phone is charged. Mom is already tinkering downstairs, trying to stifle her nervousness as she makes breakfast. After brushing his teeth, Izuku splashes ice-cold water on his face. He expected to wake up a nervous mess, but in truth he feels calm. I won't be able to see you tomorrow, as I have to assist to the exams myself. All Might said the day prior, before leaving. So, I'm going to give you my pep talk now. A thin hand on his shoulder, bony fingers squeezing gently. Win. I will. Izuku whispers, closing his hands into fists. I won't let you down. He makes his way into the packed conference room with only a couple of minutes to spare. For all his sureness, he ended up getting a bad case of jelly knees just as they approached Yue's gates. Mom, Mickey and Ichiko-san hugged him tight for what felt like forever. We are channeling our strength into you, Ichiko-san said, half joking. That was enough to make him feel immensely better. He turned one last time from the door, flashing a victory sign toward the now far familiar lights, and then stepped in, taking a deep breath. The problem now was that the room was so packed Izuku couldn't make out a single free space where he could sit. Surely there must be some free seats still, but in the chaos of lights it was incredibly hard to distinguish. Psst, hey, with the curly hair. A female voice, and then a hand tugging at his sleeve. Over here, there's a seat. Oh, thank you. He stammers as he slides down into the seat by her side. The girl must have recognized his confusion. Pretty packed, huh? She says. Her voice is gentle if a bit nervous. I mean, I guess that's to be expected by UA's hero course exams. I'm Uraraka Ochako, by the way. And Midoriya Izuku. He replies, and Uraraka takes his hand with only 4 fingers in the cramped space between them, shaking it. Nice to meet you, she says, and Izuku can imagine the brilliant smile on her face. When they got divided into groups, Izuku is relieved to see he's not in the same one as Kaken. No one at his middle school had any idea he was here. As selfish as it was, this was his secret that he wanted to keep until the very last second possible, a treasure close to his heart. That, and he didn't want to humiliate himself further in the very possible case he didn't make it through the exam. Uraraka is in his group, instead, which makes Izuku feel better. They are rival right now, yes, but knowing that at least one friendly presence was near him made him feel a little more brave. He wants to approach her and wish her good luck, when a big hand on his shoulder stops him in his tracks. What do you think you are doing? A severe voice. Izuku recognizes it. It's the same boy that has asked questions during the exam briefing, his voice strong and sure, just as his light is. She is obviously concentrating. Are you trying to obstruct your peers? No, whatever you want to do, don't. The boy replied, and Izuku shut his mouth. Izuku's hands hurt. He managed to take down a couple of robots by going for their weak spots, and with immense effort. Actually, his entire body hurt, clothes sticking to him thanks to how much he was sweating. All Might's plan did work, but it was a laughable result, if confronted with how well everyone else around him was doing. What was all that work for? He asks himself, furious, as he desperately runs, and as more and more robots are taken down by the others, making his chances to score enough points slimmer and slimmer. His eyes sting, and he angrily wipes the tears away. He can't just give up now, not like this. Izuku is shaken out of his stormy thoughts when the earth trembles. He turns, just in time to see something gigantic. He can't make out how tall the thing is, as the lights of living things dims out going upwards to the sky. It's that 0 points thing. He hears someone comment nearby. Better run. Lights shoots by him as the other exam goers put distance between them and the giant, but useless, robot. Every light but one. Uraraka? He calls out, confused. Uraraka's light is clearly distressed. There's something blocking her, preventing her from running away. A boulder? Pieces of rubble? Midoriya? She asks, her voice tight. What are you doing? Run. That thing could easily squash her with a single step. To hell with the exam, Izuku thinks, as his feet already started moving on their own. Ochako could only watch, her eyes wide, as Midoriya charges towards her instead of running away like everyone else did. What a strange boy he is, just barely taller than her, scrawny in his 2 big gym clothes, with that mop of curly, messy hair covering half his face. He doesn't look particularly strong, and for what little Ochako had seen of him during the exam, he doesn't seem to have any particularly flashy quirk either. And he's charging full speed towards the giant robot about 1,000 times his size. She wants to scream at him to get away. It's too dangerous, but another wave of nausea hit her. She overdid it, and now she can't even get herself free from the rubble that's blocking her ankle. Midoriya shoots past before she can even say anything, grabbing a piece of broken pipe from the floor and then starts to climb with a rather remarkable agility up the robot's leg. The robot is still walking forward, apparently not reacting to the little boy that's now near one of its junctures. Midoriya is hanging by one of the thick cables with one hand, his feet firmly placed against the steel, and he's trying to sink the piece of pipe in a very precise spot with all his strength. Ochako has no idea what he's doing. Midoriya must be desperate and out of his mind, There's no why he'd act like this if he was lucid and realized that he was trying to fight with a robot the size of a skyscraper that would merit him a whole lot of 0 points. That is until the robot makes a creaky noise, its step falters when the leg Midoriya is hitting refuses to work properly, and the thing starts to lose balance, falling on a side. The robot is so heavy that Midoriya is dislodged and launched up in the air by the recoil of the fall. That's when Ochako realizes. He was saving her. Izuku is falling, he's going to splat down on the asphalt like a mature tomato. Bye-bye you, bye-bye mom, bye-bye all might. A light embraces him, and his free fall is suddenly slowed down to a gentle glide, as if Izuku suddenly turned into a feather. Uraraka Ochako doesn't let him go until they are both firmly on the ground, alive, and definitely not splattered. Why did you do that? Chest strained. Izuku slowly stands, his knees weak. The giant robot is not moving anymore. Uraraka is okay. Uraraka is okay. You were in trouble. He replies with a relieved sigh. Someone had to do something. Your hand, she gasps, and Izuku can feel the warmth of blood on his palm. Old sores opened and started to bleed when he held so tight to that pipe, hitting and hitting again, regardless of the pain. Nothing, he says, and then a horn sounds in the distance, present Mick's voice announcing the end of the exam. He laughs, nervous, not a sign of mirth in it. His nose stings. I guess this is it for me then. Uraraka has stood up as well. She places a gentle hand on his arm, her light speaking of sadness for him. Then she pukes all over him. Principal Nedzu pats Toshinori on the knee a couple of times. I see what you meant about that boy, he says. He's certainly a very interesting one. When he enters into the Midoriya's household, the boy is sitting on the couch in the living room with a blank, lost expression. He's been like this since we came back from the exam the other day. Inko sighs in a low voice after welcoming him in. I'm sorry for having kept him waiting. He replies, scratching the back of his head. But had a lot of things to take care of. The official results will not be announced for a few days yet, but I figured he'd be down after the exam. Even if it's a bit of cheating, I'd rather just tell him now and take the weight off his shoulders. Inko smiles at him, patting gently his shoulder before disappearing in the kitchen, giving him and the boy some privacy. Young Midoriya. The boy jumps, turning around with a surprised expression, before turning away from him in haste. Oh, hello, he says, voice low. Toshinori sits down by his side, observing. Midoriya is hanging his head low, hands between his knees nervously tightening into fists over and over again. So, he starts, casually. How do you think you did? I'm sorry I disappointed you. Midoriya whispers back. Toshinori takes a deep breath. So much work to build up the boy's confidence, and yet it takes so little to tear it down. I'm not disappointed in the slightest, my boy. Toshinori says. You did excellently, exactly as I thought you would. Don't, Midoriya gulps, his throat moving. Don't make fun of me, please. I'm not. Do you think I really would do that? Slowly, the boy turns his face up to him. It is true that your score was very low, the lowest among your group. Toshinori says, ignoring the flinch that followed those words. But that was not all there was to the exam, and you did exactly what I expected you to do. The boy blinks, confused, and Toshinori cannot help the temptation to ruffle his hair. You showed them all what a hero really is. The young Uraraka came to us, you know? She realized you've ignored your own exam in order to help her, and asked us to share her points with you. She did. Seems like you've already got a new friend, my boy. Toshinori adds in a gentle voice, before continuing. But, in the end, there wasn't the need to do that. The fighting score wasn't all that there was to it, and by showing your willingness to act for the good of others, even to the detriment of yourself, you ended up receiving the highest score in the rescue points, making it into the rankings. Wait, Izuku is breathless, his heart beating right in his throat. This cannot be real. You mean? Congratulations, young Midoriya. You are now a student of UA's hero course. The very last few days of middle school trickled by. Izuku lived them in a dreamlike state. He was going to UA. He was going to UA. He was going to UA. The official results would come out any day now. Kaken didn't know yet, and had no doubt himself passed with flying colors, as he liked to brag loudly and with gusto. Izuku had no doubt about that too. What Kaken lacked in compassion, he made up with sheer power. No doubt the highest fighting score would belong to him. He had no idea how Kaken would react to seeing Izuku's name in the rankings. Hopefully, the first impact of his explosive rage would come when he was home, far, far away from Izuku. Silence, please. Their homeroom teacher called. We are starting to receive the first results of your exams. He called out some names, congratulating various students for successfully getting in their high school of choice. And then, Bakugu and a beat of silence. Midoriya? Izuku could feel the silence that fell in the classroom in his mouth, thick as tofu. The teacher let out a little embarrassed cough after his own hesitation. Congratulations, I hope your future in UA's hero course will be bright. The chaos that exploded, literally, required 5 minutes of their teacher yelling at them to calm down, before it could be contained. Some of his classmates shot up from their seats as Kaken's desk exploded into 2 neat pieces as soon as the teacher finished his sentence. Midoriya? No way. What? Soon, Izuku was surrounded. Midoriya? When did that happen? Izuku stammered. Dude, congratulations. Someone else exclaimed, their voice sincere. Before he could try to say anything else, hands were on him, friendly patting his shoulders, voices congratulating him from all sides. He expected Kaken to be on his throat at any second, now, but he never came. Izuku. Mickey's voice came from far away, growing louder in a few seconds, and she crashed into him, grabbing him with her arms under his armpit and lifting him up, twisting him around. You made it. She yelled, laughing madly. Izuku couldn't stop laughing, although he felt a bit guilty. All Might made him promise not to tell anyone until the official results were out. It had been so hard not to yell with Mickey about it for all those days. Still, she apparently already knew despite the fact that their teachers shared the news with them just a couple of hours before. How do you know? He asked laughing. Everyone is chain texting like mad, dude. She replied, finally putting him back down on the floor, but not letting him go. Everyone is so excited for you. It's incredible. Oh, Izuku, I'm so happy. She closed her gloved hand in a fist, rubbing her knuckles on his head madly. Mickey, no. He tried to protest between laughs, trying and failing to free himself up from the Mickey clamp hug of death. Everyone is so excited for you, she said. Well, that was a new feeling for sure. For a while Ichiko's gym has turned into party central. They simply couldn't stop. Every time they got together, at the end of a training session, they just had to celebrate Izuku's successful exam. The boy would react with embarrassed delight every single time, laughing and smiling and dancing with Mickey. I will end putting up weight dash, Inko whined with a smile, as she brought some more cooked goodies. Well, means you'll still have to visit me when Izuku will start with high school, right? Ichiko replied, making her laugh. I don't need an excuse for that, Ichiko-san. Izuku was living his life on a cloud. Whenever he went in school, he'd get stopped by people congratulating him, wishing him success, patting his shoulders. It was such an alien feeling, but he couldn't deny to himself that it wasn't an unwelcome one. And every time he, Mom, Mickey, and Ichiko-san were in the same room, they ended up celebrating in a way or another. Middle school would end the next day, and then the break before the start of high school of UA would come. Ichiko-san and All Might already studied his training regime for it, and Izuku, eager to get better and better and better, couldn't wait for it. He was humming a tune to himself, walking through that same underpass that completely changed his life some months prior, when a familiar light in front of him stopped him dead in his tracks. I know you can see me, Kaken says. You lying sheet. The distance between them rapidly closed as Kaken walked right up to his face. Was it funny? He growls. Kaken, was it nice to laugh behind everyone's back as you lied to their faces? Kaken, Well, guess what, dipshit, you didn't fool me. I don't. Shut up. Izuku's back hits the wall painfully after Kaken grabbed him by the collar, pushing him forcefully. For how long did you think you could keep up this recital, huh? Kaken hisses in his face. What was even all of this? This long con? Have you thought that by acting like a useless piece of shit it'd make it easier for you to get into UA? Well, I guess it worked, so, for once, you were right. Finally the piece clicks into place in Izuku's mind. He whispers. You think I'm not blind? Like, no fing sheet. Kaken spits out. Do you think I didn't notice? You were dead on in hitting that stupid mud guy months ago, and you don't even pretend to go around with that dumb cane anymore, and now you miraculously made it into UA? Who did you think you could fool? Kaken's hands are still tight on his collar. Izuku's fingers circles around Kaken's wrist. Do you really think I would lie about something like that? He asks, voice low. I think you are a cowardly, lying sack of shit, so yes. I do. Kaken replied without missing a beat. Izuku hates himself for it, for how easy tears come up to him. They roll down his cheeks freely, as he uses his other hand to drag the hair away from his eyes. He feels Kaken flinch. Look at me, he hiccups. Look at my eyes and tell me, do you think I would lie? But he doesn't give Kaken the time to answer. Do you think I wouldn't sell my soul for just a minute of being able to see my mother's face again? To see how the sky looks like, how my friends smile at me. Do you think I wouldn't, that I never, do you think I wouldn't want to be able to look at you, to actually look at you, right now, and look into your eyes and try to see what words cannot tell me? Izuku coughs, sobs shaking him. Kaken's hands are less tight on his collar. Do you think I don't wish with all my strength to be able to look at you and try understand why do you hate me so much? He finishes in a broken voice, his fingers trembling around Kaken's wrist. Kaken let him go as if he'd got burned. Izuku slides on his knees on the asphalt, coughing, tears rolling down his cheeks. The silence stretches long, infinitely so, even if it was just a handful of seconds in reality. Then Kaken turns and runs away. When he enters home, he can hear Mom and All Might laughing about something in the living room. Oh Izuku, there you are. There's someone, Izuku? His mom starts cheerfully as she comes to the door, before her voice turns worried. Izuku knows he must look a mess. He hasn't been able to stop crying as he made his way back, tears still rolling down the wet little tracks they formed on his cheeks. Before she could add anything he walks past her, his shoes messily left behind him, making it in his room and closing the door with the key before sliding down with his back against it, collecting his knees against his chest, sobs shaking him. Oh no, excuse me a minute, Inko stammers before following her son upstairs. Is he usually like this? Aizawa asks, perplexed. Toshinori frowns, a finger on his chin. Well, young Midoriya can get a bit emotional at times, but I've never saw him quite this distressed before. Something serious must have happened. Jesus worried. Looks like I choose the wrong day to meet this wonder boy of yours. Aizawa replies, unreadable as always. Toshinori hums as they wait downstairs, Inko's voice muffled in the distance. She comes down a few minutes later, pale and frowning, a hand on her mouth. I'm very sorry, Mr. Aizawa, she says. He's refusing to open the door. I have no idea what has gotten into him. Can I? Toshinori asks, pointing upstairs, and Inko sidesteps, wordlessly. A knock on the door, and then All Might's voice. Young Midoriya? If there's one person he absolutely does not want to see him in this state, that's All Might for sure. Do you want to open the door? He asks, infinitely gentle. Izuku cannot stop crying. It's as if a dam has broken into his eyes, but then, they've always been broken, and they always will, and the tears keep coming, no matter how much he has already tried to will them away. And no, he manages to say after a beat of silence. Do you want to talk about what is troubling you? What is troubling him is this black hole that has opened in his chest, skiing everything in, or maybe spitting everything out. Izuku is not sure. No, he says instead. He can hear All Might sigh from the other side of the door. My boy, we are all very worried. If you do not feel like talking to us, I hope you will at least take in consideration the idea of talking to someone else. All Might says, I know that at your age sometimes you just do not feel like talking to an adult. But I can think of at least one person that will be sure to listen to you, without any of our adult baggage. Izuku listens as All Might stands up. He must have knelt down a bit, and goes downstairs. He sniffs a bit, angrily, wiping the tears away from his cheek. Useless. They immediately get replaced, and with trembling fingers he takes his phone out of his pocket. Mickey, he sobs, after she picks up at the third ring. Do you have a minute? 20, probably. The morning after, Inko opens the door to a Mickey in full casual clothing. Good morning, Miss Midoriya, she says, smiling brightly. Me and Izuku are skipping the last day of school. Sorry about that, but it's important. Mickey drags him into a part of town he has never really frequented at all, replying in a sing-song voice that it's a surprise when Izuku asks where they are going. Here we are, she says, her gloved hand still on his wrist as she opens a door. Izuku hears the tingling of chimes, and his nose is immediately attacked by the smell of some sort of chemical, making him sneeze. Sorry, you'll get used to that, Shiori, she says, finally letting his hand go to hug whoever approached him. Izuku, this is Shiori, my friend Izuku. Shiori takes his hand and shakes it. I can see what you mean, Mickey, she says. Potential under the disaster. That finally gets a word out of him. Excuse me? Mickey laughs. Shiori is my hairdresser. She's like magic. Everyone is super envy of my dye job all the time, and I don't share her easily, so you better be dim and grateful I brought you here, Midoriya. Izuku blinks. You dye your hair? The two girls laugh as he gets guided and pushed on a seat. Yes, I do, and you'd know, have you ever bothered to ask? Now sit and let Shiori work her magic. You never asked her how she looks? Shiori asked curiously, her finger carding through Izuku's hair as if she's studying it. He gulps. I lost my sight when I was 4, so my memories of what it actually means to see are very fuzzy. Most of the time asking that would be pointless. I have a hard time visualizing descriptions, anyway. He says, vaguely monotone. Shiori hums, distracted. Okay, I know what to do with you, little disaster. I don't want my hair dyed. Izuku replies. The mere idea of having to smell that chemical all the time makes his head spin. None of that, don't worry. We're just gonna go with a bit of restyling. Stay there, I gotta take some stuff in the back. Izuku turns toward Mickey, sitting at his left, with a whine. You promised me, Midoriya. She interrupted him before he could even start. Izuku sighs. Shiori works on him for a while, chatting with Mickey of anything that comes to mind. Izuku relaxes, might as well do that since he has no choice but to be subjected to this. It feels like ages before she's finally done, putting the reclining chair back into an upright position and drying his hair, her fingers working methodically and clearly experienced. And voila! Shiori says, taking the sheet covering his shoulders away. What do you think? He knows that both girls are staring at him as they hum. I knew it. Mickey hisses. You have a natural cuteness to you, Midoriya. That mop of hair covering your face all the time wasn't doing you any favor. Shiori explains, I didn't even need to do that much, really. I shortened it a bit, freeing your face. You have kind of round features, so they go well with you natural curls. As long as you keep them at this length and take care of them properly, you will do just fine. I can suggest to you some shampoo and hair conditioner brands to keep your hair soft and easier to manage. Izuku is kind of overwhelmed by the information, palming at his now shorter hair. It feels weird. He's so used to have that constant weight, to feel the brush of his hair on the point of his nose, keeping his eyes hidden from everyone else. Izuku. Mickey says when he doesn't reply. Do you know why I forced you to come here, today? Izuku shakes his head. This is the new you, Mickey declares, jumping down from her seat to stand in front of him. He can imagine her, standing proudly, hands on her hips. This is the new you that is going to UA, and is going to become a hero, and is not going to get his entire soul crushed by the shitty words of someone that has never believed in him in the first place. Izuku realizes his mouth is hanging open. He closes it. This is the new you that has nothing to hide, that will face life openly and with a smile and proudly. From the moment you step outside this hair salon, you leave behind all the pain and the fears and the regrets, shed them just like the hair that covered your wonderful eyes. Mickey's gloved hands claps on his cheeks with a soft slap. You don't have to hide anymore, she says, her voice lower, serious. So please keep your head high and never, ever think of hiding who you are ever again. They spent the rest of the day aimlessly walking around the city. They ate ice cream for lunch and burgers for snacks. They went to a park and played on the equipment like kids, laughing. They drank one of those ridiculously expensive coffees, sitting outside and looking at the people going by, in their completely different ways. There are two girls sitting at a table to your right that are totally checking you out. Mickey leaned in and whispered at some point. No way, he tried to reply before getting shushed. Nuthi, turn around and smile now. Izuku obeyed, his cheeks burning, knowing his smile was weak, and yet he heard happy giggles follow. See? Mickey said, smug, obnoxiously sipping the last of her coffee with her straw when he turned around to face her, shocked. Told ya. When he came home, Mom dropped the steel top of one of her pots on the floor. Hello, he says, smiling. Mom walks closer, her gentle hand on his cheek. She doesn't say anything, caressing him sweetly before taking her hand away. Welcome home, dear. There's so much crammed in that single sentence. But Izuku knows that one sentence, this time, is enough. Izuku walks down the corridor, directed toward his new class, for the first time. The need to hang his head low, nervously, is almost overwhelming, but he resists. He walks by Class 1B on his way, tentatively feeling the lights out, but Kaken's light is not there. His usual luck. Letting out a little sigh, he stops in front of the door to his class. His hand lingers on the handle. Knew you, he can hear Mickey's voice in his mind. Do better, says All Might. Izuku opens the door. As soon as he does, two familiar voices, that were previously bickering, fall silent. Midoriya, right? One of them says, approaching him. It's the severe boy from the exam. I must apologize for my harsh words during the exam. You've clearly shown a deeper understanding of it than me. I'm Ida Tenya, it is a pleasure to share class with you. Oh, it's no problem, he replies, scratching the back of his head. Midoriya. Another familiar voice, and he cannot contain his smile. Uraraka. We are in the same class. I'm so happy. Oi, Four Eyes. Kaken's harsh voice interjects. Stop standing there with that stupid hand out. He's not gonna shake it. He's blind. There's something in Kaken's voice that Izuku cannot quite pinpoint, his light completely unreadable. He expected sneer from him, but there's none of that. He's actually serious. And as Ida apologizes to him, formal to a fault, Izuku cannot help but smile a bit sadly to himself. As usual, no one manages to make him yearn for sight as much as Katsuki Bakugo does. What would Izuku give, just to be able to meet Kaken's eyes, and understand what he's thinking? Ochako's hand flew to her mouth. When she first met Midoriya at the exam, she distantly wondered about the hair covering his face, but she had so many things to worry about that it seemed a minuscule, unimportant detail in the grand scheme of things. His hair was much shorter now, still messy and curly, but she could finally see the freckles dusting his round cheeks and his pale green eyes. It was obvious now that Bakugo said it. Midoriya's pupils were milky white, clearly not reacting to the frantic movements of Ida in front of him. How did he? Ochako mentally smacked herself. What right did she had to doubt Midoriya? People wouldn't believe that cute, soft little Ochako could make it into UA, and yet she did. So did Midoriya. She resumed her walk toward him, with even more strength in her stride. Ida, I think that is quite enough, she says gently, putting a hand on his shoulder, stopping his hands midway. Midoriya. He turns to her, Uraraka. I'm glad we are in the same class too, he says, little lines appearing around his eyes when he smiles. She hesitates, and she notices the lines of Midoriya's shoulders tense a bit. Oh, this is embarrassing, I'm so sorry I was sick all over you at the exams. She blurts out. Midoriya clearly relaxes. Don't worry about it. downside of your quirk. She tilting her head on a side. They told me about what you did. Midoriya adds, his voice lowering. About the points. I wanted to thank you. And Ida, that so far had been tense and silent at their side, snaps like a soldier, shoulders squared. Yes. It's a pleasure to share class with you too. Midoriya says gently, holding his hand out. Ida takes it in a firm grip and shakes, smiling. They don't get much time to familiarize with one another, as the door opens behind them to reveal a man that could probably use about 1,000 years of good sleep, a long sort of scarf covering the lower half of his face, clad in a dark coat. Get to your seats, y'all, this isn't a picnic. He says, his voice monotone. Izuku rapidly counts the desks, making a beeline for his. He's sitting right behind Kaken. How lucky. I'm Aizawa Shoyuda. The man yawns, sounding bored. I'm your homeroom teacher. Now go change, we are going out to have a test. Aizawa drags a hand on his face, tired. Goddamn Tashinori and his stupid hopeful smile. The man approached him that morning, in his all-might form, putting a heavy hand on his shoulder. A word, my friend, if you please. He boomed, making him groan. It's too early for this, just say what you want to say. He replied, voice still raw with sleep. I saw that young Midoriya has been assigned to your class. Yes, your golden boy. Go on. And I cannot help but worry. I do not mean to challenge your teaching methods, clearly, but I'm aware of your first-day tests. For all his talents and training, for the time being Midoriya is just a normal teenage boy, physically. He will not show particularly brilliant results. Are you asking me to give him a special treatment? I would never. Aizawa finally turns, facing the blinding smile. I'm only asking you to give him a chance to prove himself. He could not resist that smile. He wanted a chance for the boy? He was going to get one. Golden Kid better work his butt off, and prove he deserved that chance. As the tests went on, the threat of expulsion weighed more and more on Izuku's shoulders, making him spiral into a silent panic. All his classmates could count on their quirks to give them an edge, one way or the other. But Izuku was only stuck with his normal body, and for how fast he tried to run, for how high he tried to jump, he was still at the bottom of the chart. Aizawa-sensei finished scribbling something down, before addressing them in his monotone voice. All right, one last test. Follow me. They dutifully followed. Izuku was hugging himself, head hanging low. He could feel Uraraka's light approaching him, feeling that she wanted to put a hand on his shoulder and comfort him, but he didn't want comfort. He didn't want pity. He was done with pity. He walked a bit faster. Strength and speed are not all. Aizawa-sensei explained once he stopped them in front of another training ground. Izuku examined it, focusing his senses. It was not much different. From the fake city they took the entrance exam in, but it was more packed, the place full of tight openings and all sorts of nooks and crannies. Your ability to examine the ground you're working in and your senses are just as important. For this test, we will spend the next half hour in here. I will be hiding, and your role will be to find me. The first person that finds me gets a point, all you need is to touch me. When that happens, you'll give me 10 seconds of vantage to find a different spot to hide. I will keep hiding in different places for the full time. A little pause, as if sensei is making sure everyone is listening. Some of you might not ever see me during that time. Some of you might manage to hoard all the points for themselves. But, more probably, at the end of the 30 minutes, you will all be at 0. A collective gulp passed through the group, but Izuku is not believing his ears, a blossom of hope back in his chest. This is it. This is made for him. This is perfect. I will take 10 minutes to hide. Wait at the entrance, when you hear the horn, the time starts. Izuku has to refrain himself from sprinting like a thunderbolt when the horn blares over them. He knows already where Aizawa-sensei is, of course. But in order to don't raise too much suspicion between his classmates, he waits for them to sprint ahead, before making his way toward their teacher. If everything goes according to plan, they will soon catch up to what is going on and will probably start to try follow him. Izuku has to hoard as many points as possible before that happens. Katsuki has been searching, grunting, irritated by this stupid test, when the horn blew again, and a robotic voice announced, Midoriya Izuku, 1 point. His head snaps up at the clock, showing that a mere 2 minutes have gone by. What the F dash? He has to admit it, the boy is giving him a run for his money. Aizawa's specialty has always been stealth. Being able to hide, to move unseen, is what he does. This is a test he usually reserves for older, more experienced classes. But the boy, he's keeping up. Oh, is he keeping up? Aizawa slides under a pipe, silent as a cat. His ears are strained, waiting for Midoriya to betray his position. At 5 points, Todoroki Shudo has started to follow Midoriya, giving the boy another obstacle to surpass, forcing him to don't just make a beeline for Aizawa, but to also hide and move unseen himself. At 7 points, Yaoyorozu Momo imitated Todoroki. At 8, Tokoyami Fumikage had the same idea as well. The boy is not half bad, Aizawa has to admit. He managed to shake them off his tail more than once, thanks to his quick thinking and his ability to move in dark spaces where others would be completely lost, while simultaneously trying his DMN best to creep closer to Aizawa as silent as possible. At 9 points, Aizawa activated his quirk against Midoriya. The boy scrambled, panicked at first, hitting directly with his face a brick wall in his way. Then he jumped out of Aizawa's line of sight. And he started to make a DMN good job of keeping it so, popping out from the most unexpected places to claim his points. His 13th points, Aizawa didn't have the chance to even try to lay his eyes on Midoriya, before a small hand slapped his back, and the robotic voice announced, Midoriya Izuku, 13 points. Oh, this was fun. This might have been the most brutal game of hide-and-seek Izuku had ever taken part in. Everyone caught up. Literally his entire class was trying to follow him, obstruct him, steal those points from him. Even Kaken. I'm sorry, Uraraka. He whispered, breathless, as the girl was hopefully tailing him from a bit far, her light's movements suggesting she was trying to stay hidden from him. There was a pipe on his right between some small ones, large enough for him to pass through. He jumped in the dark space offered by the buildings surrounding them and slid in, silent. Bidding his time. Uraraka stopped right in front of him, looking around herself madly and then making a noise of frustration. Where did he go? Her frustration felt less brash than Kaken's, more directed to herself rather than Izuku. It made Izuku feel bad. But he couldn't afford the luxury of worrying about others for now. This was his one chance to don't get kicked out of UA on the first day. Aizawa-sensei was on the move, and fast, climbing somewhere. Izuku slid outside the pipe on the other side, studying his chances. Sensei stopped, and was currently perched between 2 buildings, the space just enough for one person to fit in. So far he had preferred the ground for the most part, where the shadows were darker and being unseen was easier. To perch so high, it was a bold move, considering how many of his classmates had high maneuverability and would probably spot him from the sky. Then Izuku realized. It was a challenge. Aizawa-sensei was trying to force Izuku to take a route that would put him in an easy spottable place. His classmates had fully given up the idea of finding Aizawa themselves, and were instead concentrating their efforts on Izuku. If Izuku tried to climb after him from the ground, Sensei would surely use his quirk on him. But if he approached from above, he was sure to be seen, especially from Todoroki, which had been following him like an eagle for a while, now. Izuku took a deep breath, wiping the fat droplets of sweat rolling from his forehead with a wrist. He focused, harder, taking every single detail of what was around Aizawa-sensei, even if his head felt like splitting in half, and then he saw his way. Bingo. The clock was ticking, and Aizawa wondered if the boy had given up, or was just too exhausted to take that one last point. Not that it would matter much. Midoriya had definitely proven himself, but still, he could not imagine such a driven boy ever giving up, not fighting until the last second possible. As he muses, the last minute approaches. 60 seconds remaining. And then everything happened very fast. Ochako had been running in circles, frustrated. She managed to catch that single glimpse of Midoriya before he disappeared apparently out of thin air, and she hadn't caught a single glimpse of Aizawa-sensei, not even the tip of his scarf. Todoroki was chasing through the sky with his ice bridges, as he had been most of the time. His movements in more than one occasion suggested he almost managed to catch Midoriya, but he would usually come back up after a bit, obviously frustrated. Everyone was out for blood at that point, desperate for even a single point to try stand over the others. But Midoriya wasn't going to give a single inch if he could help it, clearly. Suddenly, she sees Todoroki plunge down, raising his arm ready to attack, before the ice bridge stopped forming under his feet and the ice around his right arm never quite made it out. He fell on the rooftop of the building right under him. Midoriya Izuku, 14 points. The voice announced, and then, "Time's up." "I see." Aizawa was muttering to himself. The boy cooked up quite the bold plan. He led Todoroki on a wild goose chase towards Aizawa, and had used him as a distraction, while simultaneously luring Aizawa in a trap. Aizawa looked up at the noise, ready to throw Midoriya in for a loop with his quirk, and instead found himself staring at Todoroki, interrupting the attack he was about to unleash and sending him tumbling down as the ice bridge stopped forming under his feet. Midoriya came an instant later, a meteor from the sky, one of his arms frozen over, sweaty and desperate, slapping just barely Aizawa's arm on his way down. Midoriya Izuku, 14 points. Kid was lucky Aizawa didn't have any intention to explain to Toshinori why his golden boy ended up flattening his face on concrete. His scarf tightened around Midoriya's wrist after the slap, stopping his fall, and he lowered both himself and the boy back on the ground, gently. Once there, Midoriya hadn't moved, breathing heavily, arms and legs stretched out in a semi-frozen, sweaty imitation of a sea star. "Am I?" he breathed. "Am I expelled?" Aizawa gave him grin. "You're a lucky one, Midoriya Izuku." They regrouped at the entrance, animatedly discussing. "That was super insane." The boy that has introduced himself as Kirishima that morning said, excitedly pumping his fists in front of him. "Yes, I didn't see any of it, it must have been quite the show. I'm so curious to know how Midoriya did it." Ochako couldn't do anything but agree with the sentiment. Listening to Midoriya rack up point after point after point had been both exhilarating and frustrating. Not everyone shared the enthusiasm, she noted, when Bakugo passed by, positively fuming. Ida, instead, was muttering to himself. Maybe some kind of perception quirk? Still, doesn't explain how he moved so comfortably in an unknown ground. I must ask Midoriya for pointers. Aizawa-sensei, Todoroki and Midoriya himself were the last ones out. Todoroki had his left hand on Midoriya's right shoulder, melting down the ice that encased his entire arm with a neutral expression. Midoriya looked positively destroyed, his clothes sticking to him, drenched in sweat, walking with a bit of a limp, but showing a small, prideful smile. They almost all, run to meet them halfway, speaking over one another. "Midoriya, that was so cool. How did you do that? What is your quirk?" "Midoriya, you must teach me." "Calm down now, all of you," Aizawa-sensei said, raising his hand. "You all did terribly at this test, except for Midoriya, as you already know." The enthusiasm died quite fast after that. "But anyway, no one is getting expelled," he continued, grinning madly. "It was a logical ruse. I wanted to force the best out of all of you." The perfectly synchronized chorus of "E" was definitely plus ultra. "Midoriya, wait." Izuku turned around, two already extremely familiar lights catching up to him. "I must say, Aizawa-sensei really got to me today," Ida said from his right once he and Uraraka took a side of him each, matching his steps. "I had no doubt that an institute as prestigious as UA would only let the best of the best to keep learning between its walls. I see how deception can be motivating now." "It was the same for me," Uraraka replied at his left, embarrassed. "Did you also fell for it, Midoriya? You really gave it all in that last test." Izuku cannot help but let a little laugh out. "I swallowed it hook, line and sinker. I was really crapping myself," he admitted. After all that work, to get kicked out on the first day? No way. Come to think of it, Izuku hadn't detected any lie in Aizawa-sensei's light as he explained who showed poor results would be expelled. "What the F Are you laughing about Deku? And here we go, Izuku mutters to himself, deadpan. Kaken ran up to him, rage pouring out of him in waves. He puts a finger on his chest. Listen here, don't you dare think you're so much better than me. I don't. I'm going to crush you at the first occasion. Yeah, I know. So don't go around with that smug face, you useless Deku. And as fast as he came, off he went. Is he always this pleasant? Ida asks, the sarcasm out of place in his serious, composed tone. He was almost friendly this time. Izuku sighs. Is your name Deku? I thought it was Izuku, Uraraka asked, sounding confused. It is. I mean no, my name is not Deku, that's just what Kaken calls me as an insult. Oh, sorry then, Uraraka says, shifting her weight from foot to foot. But you know, I kinda like the name Deku. It makes me think of someone that never gives up. Izuku blinks, and for the first time in his life, the word Deku doesn't sound bad anymore. When Aizawa enters in the teacher lounge, there's a little neat pile of boxes of cat food with a note stuck to it sitting on the table. The note just says thank you, with a crude scribble of All Might's signature hair tufts. Aizawa snorts, amused, ridiculous. Inko is trying her best not to pace back and forth as she waits for Izuku. She kind of overdid it in her nervousness, and their dinner is already on the table. Finally the door cracks open, Izuku's voice saying, I'm home. And when she pops her head out of the kitchen, she sees him. His hair a bit messy, a small bruise on his cheek, tired. Smiling. Welcome home, dear. Her arms are already around him, her face on his shoulder. When did he get this tall? You have to tell me everything. Izuku grins. As she approaches Izuku's room to wish him good night, as she usually do, he can hear his voice. Yes, I told you. It was crazy. He's still smiling, lying belly down on his bed, phone against his ear, legs swinging in the air. And that girl I met at the exam, remember, she's in my class. We walked together to the station with another classmate, Ida. I think they like me. A fond smile finds its way on her lips as she turns around to go to her room. She doesn't need to wish him a good night for today. She knows he's going to sleep just fine. Izuku is almost vibrating in his seat as All Might's light, shining and bright, approaches their classroom. It's me. The booming voice starts just outside the room. Through the door like a normal person. An excited ripple goes through all the lights of his classmates as they whisper between themselves, happily, and even Izuku cannot contain the emotions. It doesn't really matter that All Might had already become pretty much a constant presence in his life well before his start at UA, now their relationships puts them in a different position. All Might is finally going to teach him, directly, for the first time. Foundational Hero Studies. All Might exclaims, taking place at the teacher's desk. Izuku is so ready. Izuku is not ready. He changed with his excited classmates, happy to put on the costume his mother made for him. He still remembers her excited voice as she described it to him. As usual, he could not really visualize it in his mind, but it did not matter, he let her talk about it, basking in her happiness. He knew the costume was perfect. She hesitated at first, wondering aloud if maybe Izuku would prefer something more professionally made, maybe with some support accessories. But Izuku couldn't really think of any accessory that might support his quirk. It wasn't something physical that could be enhanced by external gadgetry, it was all in his head. Not much you can add to that. He'd much rather put on the costume his mother worked so hard on. All Might guided them to yet another training ground, explaining to them what today's exercise would consist into. They fished letters from the box, and his heart did a little happy skip as he ended up paired with Uraraka. It's like destiny. She laughed before adding cheerfully. Happy to work with you. Izuku had been super happy to work with her too, until his happiness got squashed by what All Might said next. Our first hero pair, Uraraka and Midoriya. He announced after fishing the letters himself. Versus our first villain pair, Bakugo and Ida. Izuku's heart fell on the floor. I'm so glad All Might is as nice as he is on TV. Ochako let out a little sigh while she and Midoriya took position. I was scared they might try to do that whole expulsion thing again. When she turned around, Midoriya was pale as a ghost, his shoulders drooping. You don't look very relieved. I'm sorry, just tense. He replied stiffly. Bakugo is not very nice to you, is he? She asked softly. Midoriya took a deep breath before squaring himself. Uraraka, listen. Kaken is surely going to come for me, so I think I might have a plan. Ochako shifted closer to him. Tell me. We only have 5 minutes, so listen closely. Here's what we do. Tenya tried to speak with his partner, but after a couple of sentences it was clear Bakugo had no interest in planning with him. Are you even listening? He asked, exasperated, but as soon as the robotic voice announced the start of the test, Bakugo sprinted away, leaving Tenya alone with the fake nuke. Curses. Kaken's light was just behind the corner, waiting for him. Izuku was almost disappointed by that. Did Kaken really expect him to fall for that? He and Uraraka separated as soon as they made their way into the building as planned. Silently, he fished one of the rocks he collected outside and put in his pocket, launching it towards the corridor Kaken was in. Deku! He screamed, jumping out at the noise. Izuku's hand was already on his face. He felt the features under his palm, Kaken's vaguely crooked nose, his false eyebrows twisted in anger. With all his strength he pushed down. Kaken made a little choking sound when his back hit the floor, but rapidly turned and jumped back on his feet. You shitty! As predicted, Kaken's usual right hook came. Izuku dodged, grabbing Kaken's forearm in the way Ichiko-san taught him, and flipped him over, sending him on the floor again. He did not waste a second, running away from him as Kaken spluttered and, even more enraged, called after him. Whoa, did you see that flip? He looked like a professional karateka. Young Ishido exclaimed, excited, her fist swinging in front of her. Midoriya is super going toe-to-toe with Bakugo. Toshinori had to channel all his strength to try remain neutral and don't join in her excitement. An ambush, though, that was so unmanly. Young Kirishima said, gritting his teeth. An ambush is a valid tactic. This is a battle after all. He exclaimed, his eyes fixed on the screen. He could not wait to see what young Midoriya has come up with that brilliant little head of his. Katsuki was fuming. The little sheep managed to knock him down not once, but twice, before running away like the coward he is. He went in hot pursuit. He was so tired of Deku and his little mind tricks. Was he blind? Was he quirkless? Katsuki did not care anymore. All he wanted was a fair fight, face to face, no tricks or traps or other bullshit. Come here. You. The little sheet was quick, he has to give that. He kept slipping out from his line of sight, dodging his attacks like an annoying little eel, leading him around like a stupid dog on a leash. He kept making those sounds, clicking his tongue against the roof of his mouth. Stop that, he blurted, irritated. Come here and face me. Somehow, it seemed that the prick was finally listening. He stopped in the middle of an empty room, turned to face him, and charged. Katsuki felt a mad grin breaking on his face. Finally, Deku jumped, as if trying to dive over his head. Did he really think he could do something so dumb? Katsuki readied his fist, an explosion on his palm, and punched. His fist connected directly with Deku's stomach. Izuku expected the impact. He knew what he was in for, but his body definitely wasn't all too happy about it. The content of his stomach came out of his mouth as the strength of Kaken's punch pressed him against the ceiling that crumbled like it was made of sand, and Izuku was shot up, in the room just above their heads, with all the debris. He turned around, the lights in his head swimming, and felt Ida making a dash for him. Away from the bomb. Uraraka, now, he coughed while burning in his throat. His plan worked. Midoriya stopped the signals, so Ochako stayed still around the corner, preparing mentally. It had to be a matter of seconds, now. When she heard the explosion and then his voice, strangled, barely there, she dashed. As Midoriya predicted, she had a hole in the ceiling, a perfect passage. She jumped up, the bomb to her right, as Midoriya signaled. She didn't waste a single second, giving herself another push on the edges of the hole, and she soared to the fake nuke, hugging the tip of it. As the voice announced, Hero Team wins, she turned with a huge smile toward Midoriya, just in time to see Bakugo's punch connect with his face, sending him tumbling and skidding on the floor, Ida screaming, "Bakugo, no!" Tenya is not happy. He is not happy with himself, his performance, or lack thereof, a glaring issue in front of everyone's eyes, and he is not happy with his partner for the day, that ignored him, went alone on some kind of personal revenge quest, and to top it all, hit a classmate so hard to make him pass out after the exercise already stopped. Midoriya had to be transported to the infirmary on a stretcher, unconscious, a mix of blood and bile trickling down his chin. Tenya heard an ominous cracking sound when Bakugo punched Midoriya in the face, like breaking bones. He really hoped Midoriya wasn't too badly hurt. Uraraka didn't look very happy as well, he noted. Despite their brilliant win, her expression turned into horror as she ran toward Midoriya with a worried, strangled noise. She was looking at the floor, now nervously playing with her fingers. "Congratulations for your win," All Might said, the entire class, sans Midoriya, grouped around him. "Do not worry too much, young Uraraka. Young Midoriya will be fine in a heartbeat, thanks to Recovery Girl's talents. Now, I would like to review the performance with you all. Tell me, young Uraraka, it was clear you both had a plan. Can you explain to us what happened?" She hesitated before taking a deep breath and finally looking up. It was all Midoriya's idea. He knew that Bakugo would try to attack him, so in the 5 minutes we had to prepare, we studied a code. "A code?" All Might asked, surprise in his voice. "Yes, this way we could communicate without giving away our plan or position. His plan was to lead Bakugo to the room right under where the nuke was and open a path for me, and he also guided me, making sure Bakugo wouldn't notice as I trailed close to them. It was a simple code, but effective. He clicked his tongue like this, and she made the sound herself. 1 time for right, 2 times for left, a louder one to let me know when he individuated the position of the bomb relative to me." Tenya blinked, thoroughly impressed. At his side, Bakugo was literally trembling. Once he opened the path for me and told me in which direction the bomb was, all I had to do was to use my quirk to jump to it before Ida could catch me. Uraraka said before adding a final whisper. "We only won thanks to Midoriya." Tenya wasn't sure, but he had the distinct impression All Might was literally gleaming with pride. Izuku came to with a gasp. "Oh, you are awake." The voice made him think of an old lady, as a rather small light made its way toward him. "Let me see," she says. Small hands guides him up in a sitting position, fingers on his cheeks. He hisses when a sting of pain comes from the left side of his face. "It's gonna stay bruised for a couple of days, but the damage has been repaired with no issue. Go to bed early today, you need to rest." Izuku says dumbly. "Who are you?" There's a moment of silence, and he has the distinct impression the old lady is studying him. "I'm Recovery Girl, I'm responsible for the infirmary." Then she sighs. "You are one of those." Izuku doesn't have the time to get offended at the word, before she continues. "I'm sure I will see you here often. Here, take a candy." She slaps something in his hand. "Don't make that face. Young man, you came in with internal bleeding and a broken jaw and cheekbone on the 2nd day of school. If I had a fidelity card, you'd be one of those that fills it in a week." Izuku dutifully gulps down his candy, not daring to speak. The pain on the left side of his face makes much more sense now. "You are good to go. I'm sure you can catch the rest of your lesson if you hurry," she says, jumping down the bed he's sitting on. "And tell All Might on my behalf to please be more careful with his lesson next time." Something in her tone makes him shudder. Thanks, I will," he stammers, giving a little grateful bow before closing the infirmary door behind him and sprinting in a jog back toward the training grounds, confused. He meets the class halfway, just as they came back from the training ground. "Oh, I missed it," he pouts, Uraraka's light sprinting towards him. "Midoriya, are you okay?" she asks, worry clear in her voice. She hisses through her teeth. "That bruise looks bad." "It's nothing, Recovery Girl patched my face up just fine," he replies with a little smile. He decides to skip about the internal bleeding, She really doesn't need to know about that. How did the others do? I really wanted to assist. Young Midoriya, a word please. Both he and Uraraka flinch, and she whispers a little, good luck, before slipping in their class with the others. All Might's hand is heavy on his shoulder. My boy, you've done good, technically speaking. He says in a low voice. Your plan was quite effective and you've worked well with young Uraraka, taking advantage of her quirk. It was a success, but... Izuku turns his head up, toward his idol, silent. Please try to tone down the self-sacrificing? As much of a good move that was, in a real combat situation taking so much damage would put you out of commission, turning you into a liability for your partner. In order to be able to help others, you must also be able to help yourself, first. Izuku blinks, mulling on the words. It's true that he planned to take the hit in the first place, and it's also true that hadn't this been just a training exercise, a hit like that would surely turn him into a useless deadweight for whoever he might be working with. I'm sorry, he says, voice low. I'll try to keep that in mind. But now go, I'm sure your classmates have a lot to say to you. The hand on Izuku's shoulder squeezes, gently, All Might's voice lowering. Unofficially speaking, I'm very proud of you. Good job. Izuku is sure his chest might explode with the praise, and he gives himself a couple of seconds to calm down as All Might walks away from him. Oh, All Might, sir? He calls out, remembering. Yes. Recovery girl told me to tell you to be more careful next time. Izuku says, embarrassed. Please. Understood. Thank you, young Midoriya. Izuku cannot be sure, but he has the distinct impression All Might shuddered too. As soon as he opens the door, he's assaulted. I don't know how you came up with that, but that was like, so manly. Kirishima, that's his name, Izuku is pretty sure, sounds excited. I liked your moves. Did you study hand-to-hand combat? A female voice intervenes. I'm Ishido Mina. The way you dodge is great. I'm Azui Tiu, but call me Tsuyu. I liked your fight. Hey, I'm Rikido Sato. Izuku lets out a little nervous laugh. Thanks, everyone. It's nice to meet you. He spends some minutes chatting with his classmates, finally having the chance to properly introduce himself, until he notices the absence of a certain, very familiar light. Maybe you guys can tell me something? Kaken. His heart is beating in his throat. He's not sure why he's doing this, but there's something that makes him feel like he can't just leave things at that. Kaken has stopped, barely turning to him. He takes a deep breath. Today, I tried with everything I had to win. Kaken doesn't answer. And still, I made it out completely destroyed. No matter what, you are stronger than me in every way. But there's a beat of silence. Izuku looks directly at Kaken, his mouth in a thin line. But I will surpass you one day with my own strength. Just wait. What the F are you even talking about, shithead? Kaken replies in a low voice, through gritted teeth. You won. You beat me. Kaken breath shudders in his chest as he completely turns around. You won. And did you even that goddamn round face totally tricked me, and that stupid ice guy they are all. Kaken's light is jittering with nervous energy, and when he speaks next, Izuku hears the tears in his voice. Hear me out, Death. From this moment on, I'm going to become the number one. And you will never beat me again, are we clear? Izuku feels All Might approaching from behind, fast as a thunderbolt, before he can even think of how to reply. My boy. All Might says, standing near Kaken's light. Self-confidence is very important. He doesn't need to hear this. Izuku turns around, leaving All Might at it. Those words are not for him. Those words are for Kaken. The distance between him and Kaken, that Izuku always felt was in a mountain range, high in the sky, impossible to surpass, transformed. He could finally see Kaken's back. Aizawa sighed, thinking about the evaluations Toshinori has given to him the evening prior. Most students seem to act in line with what he'd expected of them, except for those glaring 3 outliers. Ida has strangely been very passive during the exercise, not something he'd expect from someone as serious and dutiful as him. When he told him so, in class, the boy nodded, looking contrite. I'm aware of my shortcomings. He replied. It won't happen again, sir. Aizawa nodded, seeing no need to add anything else. He then turned to those other two. Bakugu. Aizawa noticed the boy's nervous, competitive to a fault attitude. But he'd be lying if he said he did not get surprised reading his evaluation. The way he acted seemed really extreme. You are better than this. Aizawa reprimanded, patting his hand on the pile of sheets. Stop acting like a child. You are wasting your talent. I know. The boy replied, voice low and serious. As for the last one, Midoriya Izuku surely seemed to have a bad habit. While it had won him a place into the rankings, the way he acted during the exam could be considered almost suicidal. During the hide and seek test, when he'd claimed that last point, hadn't Aizawa been there, Midoriya would have fallen directly into concrete, and there is no saying whenever he would survive that fall or not. And yesterday, he actually planned to take a direct hit from Bakugu in order to win. This would not do. Midoriya, while your plan was cunning, you've openly decided to take a hit in order to win. Aizawa says, watching the boy jump in surprise. Let this be the last time you voluntarily jump in a situation where you know perfectly well you will get hurt, or possibly even die. Are we clear? Midoriya's hand is running up and down his arm, a frown on his face. Yes, sir. Okay, that is all. Now, I don't like to tell you with so little notice. A strange atmosphere fills the room, all the students tensing. But we need to pick a class president. The mix of relieved sighs and exclamations of, that's so normal. It's almost amusing. I got 3 votes? Izuku stammers, shocked. Who would even want to vote for him? Who voted for Deku? Yeah, right on point. Midoriya. Yaoyorozu calls him, and he stumbles at her side in front of the class, his head light. Well, Midoriya as president, Yaoyorozu as vice president. Glad you didn't waste too much time on this. Aizawa-sensei says, bored. Now back to your desks, I have a lesson to go through. During lunch, sitting with Uraraka and Ida, Izuku sighs. I don't think I will be up to the task, to be honest. Nonsense. Ida interrupts him. You have heart and good judgment. I know you have what the class needs, that's why I voted for you. Izuku is left speechless. Ida, that clearly sounded like he wanted very badly to be president himself, voted for him? I agree. Uraraka adds. With what Ida said, I voted for you too. She clearly sounds embarrassed, hastily adding. By the way, Ida, are you from an upper-class family? You always sound so proper. Izuku wants nothing but to be able to mull over what even is going on right now, when Ida reveals to them that he's the younger brother of the hero Ingenium, and well, Izuku is still a fanboy to heart, at the end of the day. Then pure chaos happens, and Izuku cannot do anything but let himself being dragged away by a panicked crowd, when Ida saves the day. For how happy and confused he is by the trust put into him, Izuku knows what the right thing to do is, now. There's a thing I want to say. He's facing the class, Yaoyorozu at his side. He smiles. Ida has proven to be able to act properly in the time of need and, frankly, I think he's the better man for this job. I think Ida should be class president, instead of me. Izuku is happy to hear that the idea is welcomed with enthusiasm by his classmates, and the badly hidden happiness in Ida's voice as he steps up and formally accepts his new role is enough to cement in Izuku's mind the idea he's done the right thing. Later, as he's putting his shoes ready to go home, Ida approaches him. Midoriya. Thank you for what you've done today. No problem. What you told me at lunch, Izuku replies, facing him. It counts for me too. I'm sure you will do an amazing job, class president. He offers his fist, and Ida seems almost unsure, as if he's not used to this kind of camaraderie, before meeting it with his own, then sprinting home with an enthusiast bye. Uraraka catches up to him a couple of minutes later, chirping. Let's walk together. I was really surprised to hear you and Ida voted for me today. Izuku says after a while, filling the silence. His voice is unsure. I don't really think I deserve that kind of trust. He notices she stopped walking only a few seconds later. Uraraka? Midoriya. Her voice is serious in a way he never heard before. You know everyone in class already looks up to you, right? Izuku is left speechless, stupidly blinking. In only 3 days of school you've shown us all that you're capable and smart and kind. She continues. Everyone, me and Ida included, thinks very highly of you. Do not ever forget that. He doesn't know how to reply to that. Somehow, it feels as if Uraraka just saw right through him.